Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 293. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge on the comic forums, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim. Sean slipped some Firestorm stuff into my soup, and now I have a whole new version of heartburn. So says the sensei of the whatnot, Segulin, and the Duke of You-Know.
How's it going, eh?
On this episode, we're going to be talking about Fury of Firestorm number 5, I, Vampire number 5, Blackhawks number 5, and we take a look again at Aquaman with issue number 5. This is our wrap-up, actually, of the New 52. We will have, as of this episode, we've covered every issue of the New 52. Next week, we are going to be back with our DC Universe in one line only. We're going to be talking about each of the books. We're going to give our own little, what did we come up with for a one line, kind of a summary of this whole experience, looking at each of the lines. Was this a successful relaunch, that type of stuff. How do we feel, or whatever you want to term it, relaunch, whatever, reboot. Whatnot, yeah. That's actually probably, wait, that's an appropriate use of whatnot. So we'll talk about that and how we feel about this. Did it achieve everything that we hoped it would? And that will be next week's episode. We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network and the League of Comic Book Podcasts. Over at DCBService.com, who's sponsoring us this episode, they have a deal they're offering this month, Jim. 45 to 50% off all new DC trade paperbacks and hardcovers. So if you're looking to pre-order anything, this is the time to do it. Like they have that Batwoman Hydrology hardcover. It's $11.49. That's 50% off. That's the hardcover. So, I mean, if you're looking for hardcovers or trades, this is all of the stuff you can pre-order. You get them at 50% off. $11.49 for a hardcover? Come on. I mean, that's great. So I want to thank DCBService.com for continuing to support our show. Over at InStockTrades.com, they have the Madman 20th Anniversary hardcover. It's the monster hardcover. And this is a 264-page count. It's Michael Allred. If you're reading iZombie right now, I'm a huge fan of Michael Allred, so I just want to shout this one out. It's a $100 hardcover, 52% off, $48. So if you've never read any of his work, just an amazing collection of talent that has worked with him over the years. Please consider checking this one out. InStockTrades.com and DCBService.com are just incredible for me. And the great part about that one, you're already almost at your $50 for free shipping. Yeah. You know, if you get one more trade off of that one, you get free shipping on that as well. So you've saved some great money on that one. I don't know. I think their site is amazing. There's a lot of material that I've wished I could read along the way, and I want that collection, so I'm going to be grabbing that one, so I wanted to shout it out. But they have amazing deals all the time on stuff from DC, Marvel, Image, Boom, everybody you can possibly imagine, and that's InStockTrades.com. I want to thank them for supporting the show. James, what kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth in the plotline, story twist, and whatnot of the comics we're discussing on the show. So if you haven't read the book, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
I also want to shout out DiscountPartySupplies.com. They are sponsoring our 6-year anniversary contest with that Green Lantern prize package that I announced last week. So if you haven't had a chance, go to DiscountPartySupplies.com. At the end of the show, I'll be reminding you about that contest. So make sure to check back there. It's also up on the website as of this episode, RagingBullets.com. So take a look at our 300th episode, 6-year anniversary contest. Let's talk some comics.
Through the magic alchemy of nature's most awesome sources of energy, Ray Palmer, atomic physicist, becomes the atom.
James, our first chat this episode is going to be about Aquaman. Jeff Johns is the writer. Ivan Rice, and I know I butcher his name, penciler. Inkers Joe Prado and Eber Ferreira. Colorist Rod Rice, letterer Nick J. Napolitano, associate editor Sean Makiewicz, editor is Pat McCallum. And Aquaman, just a terrific series. To me, this one is so satisfying because it's funny, Daryl Taylor and I were talking last night, and we were talking about he got the Peter David run after the fact. went back. Just at the time, he said he was getting comics on the newsstand and made mention of the fact that, he heard good things about Peter David's Aquaman, so went back gradually to conventions and was grabbing this series. This series has been so good at capturing everything that I love about Aquaman. I could care less, hook, hand, knot. That's not what the character's all about. It's about giving this guy the right amount of personality and edge while not losing what's always made the Aquaman concept interesting. And I love that they're playing on the fact of how the public has always viewed this guy. I think it's just such a great way of showing us that we never understood the character. And to me, I'm finding this series, the art is fantastic. And if you're not reading this book, one of the most accessible series when it comes to Aquaman that I think you could possibly grab. 5 issues in, I think I would have no hesitation giving this to just anybody and saying, if you think you know Aquaman, you have no idea. Read this series. I don't think you need to have read anything beforehand to understand this book. I think it's done a great job of just being... I never felt like I need to look back to Brightest Day. I need to look back to this. Any of his appearances, even since his return, I don't feel I've had to go back to. Are you feeling that same way, or am I kind of off base?
No, I'm nodding my head as you're talking. This is complete agreement with you. And even, with the whole Brightest Day, everything with him coming back through Brightest Day, and I never once with this book sat there and had to ask, okay, did Brightest Day happen like it did? Did it not? What happened through Brightest Day? There was never that mystery involved for me. For me, it just felt like, boom, this is Aquaman. This is who he is. He's not in Atlantis anymore. He's on the surface with Mira. And it just jumped right into it. It felt natural and it felt wonderful. This has been a great story for me because, one, I do not have a strong base of Aquaman. I do not have a strong understanding. I was one of those people who always thought he was a little bit on the lame side. I'm seeing more now how cool of a character he is, and if you get the right person at the helm, you can tell some great stories with this guy. And it's every issue I get more and more excited for the next one, especially this ending. I am so chomping at the bit for issue 6 because I just want to see what happens there. It's just this great buildup of these characters and a great understanding for who they are now, but it's been told throughout this series, and you jump in, you start reading, you're liking it. I'm getting a great hero story, but I'm also getting a great personal, human, well, quote-unquote, human-esque type of story.
There was a stretch where I could only get 3 comics. And at the time, I went down to Batman Legends of the Dark Knight was being published. So I went to that one because Batman was doing some crossovers at the time. Like, there were stories that were kind of going back and forth. I couldn't afford it, to get all of the Bat books. And I was one that if it was something was had any potential of crossing over, I just couldn't get them. I went back and got those issues years later and ended up reading them all. But at the time, it was like budget-wise, and I didn't know, you never know, like, am I going to be able to go back and get them? At the time, that wasn't part of your thought process. Aquaman was so good at the time. I went through, what I did was I got monthly subscriptions from DC. I asked for that for Christmas that year. So, I just told family members, what do you want for Christmas? I'm like, give me a subscription to this. Aquaman was one of the titles I put on the list. And I really, I said, I'd like, 3 or 4 subscriptions to DC Comics, and these are the books. Aquaman was up there just because it was so terrific, and I grew to love the character when they brought him back. I was so excited. You and I were both very Mira happy with the whole Blackest Night thing. I was always hoping for him to come back because of the fact that I've really built a strong relationship for this character. And, I love this bit where he's falling through the sky into the desert. One thing I love about this is the way that this book handled the jumping between time frames. We're in this situation where they set us up and he's in the desert, which, for Aquaman, like having him in the desert is just a big no-no.
Yeah, it's a bad situation.
But what's great about it is beautiful art. You're wondering why and how he got there. And they flash to the story 12 hours earlier at Amnesty Bay, showing that this guy's still thinking about what was going on under the sea, and this mystery that he's trying to solve. The one thing I immediately like about him is we've got a guy here who's living between 2 worlds, trying to find a sense of belonging. I think we've all gone through phases in our life where we haven't felt like we belonged. And I think it's been multiple times in our lives, you know, where there's situations that kind of alienate you from things, or, you know, especially for all of us that are into geek culture, usually, you know, that we tend to be the oddballs. I know I still am. So, I mean, when you read a character like this, how can you not connect with him and just go, okay, this is a guy, like, I could hang with Aquaman. I have a feeling like this is a hero that if we were sitting down at that diner that he was in the earlier issues in this, like, I think I could have a conversation with him and make it work because we have something in common. Like, we might become pals. He'd probably get sick of me, but we'd become pals.
Probably.
Yeah. But you know what I mean? There's something about him. There's a connectability. And I like that about the character. Like, you through his pain, through his past, you're connecting. And that's something I think this series in 5 issues has done a great job of emotionally developing. This isn't something looking back at his history. This is something in this book. They've really, I mean, yes, it's been a part of the character's history, but they've done a great job in 5 issues here of really engaging those emotions of strength and vulnerability and balancing it out to the point where you respect him for who he is. You know, if you're going into a fight, this is a guy you want to go with because he's not going to stop. He's going to keep trying to find a way to solve the problem. If he gets hurt or whatever, he's going to keep coming back. You know, if you get into trouble, he is going to come for you. If he doesn't succeed the first time, he will keep coming and coming and coming with new plans, new ideas until he succeeds in his goal. And yet there's a human side to him. I don't know. Everything about that just really grabs me from the get-go. The relationship with Mira feels very real. You know, they still have issues to work out, but at the same time, they both have the common goal of working them out together. I love that they haven't been magically brushed under the carpet. There's still things you see these characters working through. And it's something, I don't know, for me, I'm just finding this very realistic, very engaging. This is how you do a couple in comics. Exactly how it's being done here. It's brilliant.
Oh yeah, dude, I'm digging just the relationship between the two of them. But it's funny when you're talking about the human side of Aquaman. The one thing that really, you know, endears me to the character is the fact that he isn't letting go of those the previous the sharp teeth people, the underdweller, the trench dwellers. He's not letting go of the fact that he had to kill them. He had to eliminate their race, and it does affect them. And he's still thinking about that. He's still thinking, I could have done something different. What if I tried this? And you could see he's just, you know, contemplating what's going on there. And I loved how they showed that it's still bothering him, that he's still thinking about it, because that whole sequence, you know, when we're back in Amnesty Bay, he's looking out at the window, Storm, and thinking. In the window, you see the images of those creatures. You know, and you know they're not actually outside the window, but that's the way to let us know what he's thinking about. And Mira can see that. You know, she knows what he's contemplating still, what he's still upsets. You know, what's keeping him up at night, keeping him thinking. I love seeing that because there should be consequences. There should be that feeling. It was such an emotional moment for him. I'm glad it just didn't end with that issue, but they're not going overboard with it. They're not going, you know, to the extreme where he's the suffering and the lengthy inner monologue that's telling us how upset he is over it. Just these simple looks, you know, the look from, you know, that he's giving her, you know, just to let her know, hey, this is what's going on. I love that moment. That was, for me, was a great artistic moment because it told me everything I needed to know going through his mind, but it didn't, you know, beat it to death.
He's not whiny about it. He's still getting things done. You know what I mean? He's a character that, like, okay, you can learn something from Aquaman. Like, he's got a reason to be upset, and this should haunt him, and I like that it's haunting him. But you're also seeing him man up and do his thing. I love that. I love a character who does that. And this shouldn't just vanish. And honestly, it hasn't, because that mystery of those creatures is now playing out in this whole Atlantis mystery that's being set up. They're actually going to show us why Atlantis sank. Nobody's ever done that.
Yeah, I tell you, it was one of the moments that I digged was that involving with the flashback jumping back and forth was the little changes in the artistic, the coloring, and just a little changes in it. It's still the exact same art, but they're doing the one at night, so you got a little bit of a darker tint than the bright desert. You know, back and forth, the shifting that way. That for me was kind of a cool moment.
Well, this creative team in general, I think, is just hitting a home run. This to me is a AAA top tier book. This is your top of the line. This is a flagship title. And anybody who's not picking this up is really missing a very special title. This is up there for me with the best of Green Lantern, the best of Batman, the best of Superman, Wonder Woman. This is a title you should be reading. Flash. I think Flash right now is just doing a bang-up job in its artistic delivery and story presentation. This Aquaman, though, has really benefited from the relaunch. I think this is a title that really just feels like a main tier book. I hope that fans who maybe have never given the character a shot are giving this character a shot. If not, they've just been soliciting collected editions of all these titles, and they're going to keep continuing doing that, over the next couple months. It seems like they're gradually staggering them. And you got to grab the Aquaman one if you haven't been reading this, because it's a gorgeous. I'm considering grabbing the hardcover of this one just because I like the series that much. I mean, this has a lot of rereadability. Plus, it's also a book that I'm going to page through for the beautiful art.
Yeah. Well, this is one of the things with this issue especially. They've really, like the past, I've loved what I saw, but there always was a lot of action going on. There was some dialogue, some inner stuff. This one, they really did do a lot of hands-off stuff, especially through some of these early desert moments. And in a way, that was something that I really enjoyed because you just needed just to see it, just to kind of experience the desolation that he's going through. It kind of was a great way to get us in his head. One, I don't know if I could ever really get into his head and understand what he's thinking, because we are two completely different people. But this kind of helped me out. Just get an understanding of what he was feeling. It was a great emotional connection as you see him just dredging along through the sand. He has that initial thing where he rips the one spike that's through his leg. Okay, yeah, that looked like it hurt. And then he's just dredging on. He gets to his trident, and he just continues on and keeps moving. It's just that never-ending, don't stop kind of, just that feeling, that hero-esque moments.
Now, one of the things that I really like about this series, and one of the areas where I connect with him in a way I didn't expect, I was adopted. So you got this guy who has, he was raised one way, but then there's this whole other world that he could have been a part of. Not that I'm thinking, I don't want to know anything about, birth parents and all that kind of stuff, because I was adopted as an infant. But if I had superpowers, I would want to. I'd have some questions. Like, what's going on here? I like his world, though. I like, the fact that one of the things that I really like about him is they've played off the fact that he has a strong relationship with his father, and that's something that he dreams about and he thinks about and reflects on. And, to this day, I think we all have, whether you're adopted or not, you have, certain dreams where, you look at your parents showing you approval, and at times where your parents have shown disapproval for things you've done. And those are things that affect us, especially if you have a strong relationship with your family. Well, this guy, he had a strong relationship with his dad, and I think his dad did a really great job considering how quirky this character is, with the fact that, his mom was from completely different type of people. Did a really good job of raising him pretty normal, considering. And so you got this guy who's, been well balanced that way, but now he's had to embrace the fact that, he was an Atlantean and he was a ruler, and, he's now given up that part of his life because he's trying to, and I agree with his dad in that, I think that was Arthur's subconscious kind of working with him, that he is trying to belong to our world. But I don't think you can truly belong to just one when you've been so entrenched in the other two. And I think this mystery is going to show him that he is a man of two worlds, and that while he is on the earth, on our side, he also has to deal with the mystery of what was Atlantis, what caused it to sink, what secret were the rulers keeping from the people, and obviously it has something to do with these creatures. Here's the question. Are they all dead? Or is there more to that than we even know? Like, he did one thing, but did that really end it? Or is this bigger than even we've seen so far?
Well, I definitely think it's bigger than we've seen. And I definitely think those creatures aren't completely dead yet. And it's part of the reason why the Atlantean hit team came to get the tech. Once that started that signal, that was the emitter to let anybody, know that, hey, this is a data piece, or has some classified information in it. So that's why the hit team came to get it back, and that's of course what led him to his desertorial problems. But I think just again, this is laying down some groundwork for some really cool Atlantean stories, and we're going to find out what happened, what caused the crash, there's something going on. And my one theory I had was kind of the Atlantean created those trench creatures, and they either created them for sentries or created them for something, and they couldn't control them. But those were probably Atlanteans who were converted, mutated, or twisted, or something like that. Oh. And that's where I'm thinking this is going, and that's why there's a big cover up, because it's what the ruling class did to their own people that created those things. Yeah, that's my guess.
Yeah, I don't know. Or the other thing is that they made contact with them, and instead of making peace, instead of helping them or something, it caused a rift between them. I like your theory better, though. I haven't really spent a lot of time thinking about what happened there, because it was pretty clear to me that whatever has happened in the past, I'm with you, there's some rift there. Yeah. And it's not just it's a chasm. And whatever it is caused them to sink Atlantis. That's what seems to be hinted at. I want to know what it is. And obviously that's the direction the story's going. So I'm not really worried about trying to figure it out ahead of time. I'm just excited that we're going to be getting that story. But I like your theory. I think your theory's pretty sound on it's going to be something like that. And I think that's cool. What I'm really curious about, too, is what is his relationship with Atlantis? Like, how long was he ruler? Who is this hit squad that's coming in, trying to get the information? He doesn't know what they are 100%. Mm-hmm. I thought he was pretty shocked when there was water inside the helmets. So, are there different sects of Atlanteans that wouldn't know about it? Has he been away from Atlantis for so long that he's out of touch with the race? I don't know. Or is this a group of descendants of these original Atlanteans, who had sank down there and maybe never let go of what happened? I don't know. You'd have to believe, similar to the human race, there's lots of different sects and countries and regions and even cults and things that have, cropped up around the world, that we don't all know about. And this to me feels like a great opportunity to expand what we don't understand about the undersea world. I'm excited for this. I mean, when you start seeing this guy in this wonderful Atlantean, that armor I thought was really cool. Talking about how Atlantis is in danger and, the secrets. What side does Arthur take, as this goes on? That's going to be part of the mystery, because who do you side with? Why? It's going to be a very deep political issue that's going to rise, I guess, with the Atlanteans that still exist.
Yeah. Well, you think about just how much of the world is covered by ocean. There's so much more surface that's covered in water that there's no way one race could be just there. There has to be other sects. There has to be other groups and other political agendas. There's just too much space for them all to be in one group. So that's what I want to see, if this is a completely different, separate sect from Atlantis that, who knows, maybe they never even knew about the other group. I'm talking even the Atlantis people not know about this other group. There could be a complete surprise and unknown that way as well.
Well, that's why I went the cult route.
Yeah.
Wondering, is this a sect that they don't know about, or is this connected with the main group? I see it going either way. It could be in both cases. This is a secret that he never knew about. I'm leaning towards that the people in general don't know about it, because wouldn't Arthur know? But that does lead me back to the question, how long was he ruler, and what happened there? So I want to see, I'm enjoying the unfolding mystery of what exactly is Arthur's past with them. What is his current status with them? Is this a cult? Is it the main group? Those are all just, I think, terrific questions that this is how you build interest in following a series. I cannot wait for issue 6. The week that it comes out, issue 6 will be a first read, because this book is that good. This book is top of the stack status. I grabbed that. For me, the books I'm most excited to read are the ones I read first. Aquaman's in that category. I read this first. It's in the top 1 or 2 books Always. I guarantee you issue 6 is in the top because of just how good this issue was. This is a series that has continued to deliver every single issue. I love the dog. He's got the little Aquaman symbol around his neck because they're using that kind of as a collar kind of thing. I love the fact that he's got that man from his past, that scientist that kind of worked with him, who is still investigating. He's looking for an opportunity. I think deep down there's a part of him that cares about Aquaman. Then there's a selfish part of him that cares about Aquaman, obviously, for his own scientific research and advancement and his own name. So I think that there's a duality to that guy. I like that he's not cookie cutter. Like, definitely got that villain vibe with him because he would screw Arthur over to advance himself. But I do think that there is a part of him that cares too. You know what I mean? It's an interesting duality with him. I like that it's a supporting character that has been fleshed out enough that I like that I don't feel that there's one story to him or there's one side to him. There's more than meets the eye, and I think there will be times where he'll help Aquaman, and there's times where Aquaman will want to boot him to the head and maybe hit him with the trident. I just think this is a very well-produced series with great character drama, great character development. And, here's the funny part. I was just thinking the other day I saw a picture of Aqualad, and I was thinking to myself, where's Aqualad? And now I'm thinking to myself, take your time.
Yeah.
Introduce him when it's appropriate, because I think you'd shove him in now and you'd have nothing to do with him at the moment because there's too much going on. But I'm very excited for when they do get to the point where they're ready to introduce that character. And then maybe he belongs on Titans or something. I don't know. But this series cannot deliver more. I kind of like it.
Well, the ending scene where Aquaman comes home and he's looking for Mira, and you get that note, that simple note, went to town for dog food, Mira. And just, something's not going to go right because, one, she doesn't completely understand humans. And she doesn't understand what, she needs to do, how to, just something as simple as going to the grocery store is going to be a completely foreign concept to her. And something's going to happen. Whether it's, she doesn't understand them correctly, there's insults, there's going to be something that's not going to go right. And that for me was, one, we have all these great Aquaman stories. I'm like, I really want to know what's going to happen with Atlantis, where did this come from? But that one little panel just had me so excited for 6 because I want to see Mira in town. I want to see Mira dealing with the people who have, Aquaman has dealt with, the naysayers and the people one way. He's kept, he's taken the high road. He's, taken the noble road. Mira, I don't know if she will or not. I don't know. I'm thinking we're going to see her kick somebody's butt or threaten it or throw them across a room or there's got to be something is going to happen. And I'm really just excited to see what that something's going to be.
All I'm thinking right now is Captain Obvious with the Miro versus the World in the bottom right-hand corner. Yeah. You think? I'm with you. I'm excited for that too. And I agree. The funny part is you're right. You don't need that in the bottom right-hand corner. It's the way this story has been developed and what we know about the character of Mira. She really is, no pun intended. Well, I guess pun intended now. Mira is a fish out of water. Yeah. And I honestly, I love that about this series. I think it's just really well written and well produced. It's one of the better books being produced by DC right now. And if you're missing this, you are doing yourself a disservice. Especially if there's something you're like, this book isn't delivering for me right now. Try Aquaman. Because, this one's a home run. Can't hit it more out of the park than this. I honestly think, I'm going to go out on a limb and say, I think this is the best book that Jeff Johns is producing right now. And I have no hesitation saying that. I love the other books that he's doing, but this for me, and I'm just saying for me personally. You don't have to agree with me. And I don't care if anybody else does. For me personally, this is the Jeff Johns book each month, and I'm putting it a little bit ahead of Justice League. This is the Jeff Johns book that each month since it's come out has been delivering for me as being his best book. I think the writing on this, there's not a wasted moment.
Yeah, it's funny. On one hand, I completely agree. Then there is some hesitation with Justice League, especially some of the stuff that's come out, and just the anticipation of seeing these heroes interact and how they're going to interact has helped keep Justice League. Yeah, I fight back and forth between this one and Justice League. And that's just because for those reasons.
And that's not me putting down Justice League.
Yeah, I know.
That's me applauding Aquaman. So there's a distinction there. I love Justice League. Justice League's fantastic, so I'm not knocking that book. I just think this book is pretty perfect.
Yeah. Oh, I'm agreeing with you on the perfection of this book, and this easily is in my top 10. Could easily be probably even in the top 5. If I had to, we always have that if some dramatic thing happened to my finances and I had to cut my books, and this would definitely be one of the books I'd have to have just because I'm getting great stories out of it and I'm getting a lot of enjoyment out of it. And
I think it benefits from the fact that it's a very contained book. It's not crossing over a whole lot and other things. It's just kind of doing its own thing. I think there's something to be said for that. But I think, I'm seeing that a lot with the New 52 anyway. Like, I don't consider, like, what Omac and Frankenstein did, for example, or what's coming up in Batman as being these books are crossed over, they're forced. Or even what's going on in Green Lantern. There's self-contained stories that are being told there that are echoing each other, sure. But Aquaman's really doing a great job, I think, of just developing what's cool about Arthur's world. And it's a terrific book. Glad we got a chance to talk about this one. Are you tweeting over there?
Yes, I am tweeting the birds.
Are you really?
Yes, I have a nest outside my window, and so we may get tweets every so often.
Which is kind of ironic, considering your love for tweet.
Yes. Considering my love of that,
Jim's talking
God
to the
has
birds.
a sense of humor.
Jim's
right
talking.
Here's verification.
I love
this nice little nest that it doesn't bother me during the day because usually I'm at work.
Right.
But on the weekend, I'm sitting here and I hear tweet. I'm like, yeah, I get you. Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, it's a really good joke. And,
Shadow War of the Hawk.
Look at those strange little beetles. They look great neutrons.
And our next book will be I, Vampire, number 5. Let me first start off with an apology to the creative team. I absolutely love this book, and I love the artistic stylings of it, so any mispronunciation of your name is not a reflection of your skills, and I truly just want to say I'm sorry because I am going to butcher some of these names. The writer is Joshua Hale, Fialkov. Filkov. The artist is Andrea Sorrento, with colorist Marcello Milo, Maiolo. Letterer Pat Brousseau, with cover artist Jenny Frisian, Frison, with associate editor Will Moss, editor Matt Idelson, and I, Vampire was created by J.M. DeMatteis and Tom Sutton.
Now, I don't know about you with this book. It's funny. I had an interesting experience with this one. This one I stockpiled, and it wasn't because of quality. It was another example of, reading 52 books, plus miniseries, plus other titles that I'm reading along the way. It's one of those I didn't start reading, like when it came out. I was collecting the issues, and I read them. So I sat down, and I read issues 1 through 4. It was another example of, when we chose the ones we were doing for the show, I just ended up stockpiling this one. I read 1 through 4 together when 4 came out. Oh my gosh, is this a great title? And I don't know, I know you got more of a vampire background than I do, but I know obviously I know enough, I've read enough vampire stories to know that this is a unique take on vampires in certain ways. But there's something I really like about having a vampire set in the DC universe and the way this is playing out in the current world. I love the battle between the vampire who's trying to have a moral ground and the one who he's in love with that is not. And that kind of love story bit for me. See, I like the romantic. For me, a vampire story has to have a bit of a romantic element to it on some level. And I'm not saying it always has to be between the guy and the girl. There's a certain romance to the way vampires carry themselves and what they do too, and it's something uncomfortable because of the fact that they're vampires. So you got to have that kind of element to it. And this book has all of that. I love the artwork. I just think it's a great art style to it, which is why I agree with your apology. I would have done a lot worse than you did on the introduction of them. But I really think this is a great creative team who's developed a book with, to me, that's designed from the bottom up to be a great, edgy vampire story. These supernatural books that DC's producing have really been top tier. And these are books that I don't want to say, I use the word frustrated loosely, but I think that marketing-wise, I would love to see this being marketed more towards, we mentioned earlier, the Stephen King, Anne Rice kind of crowd. I think there's an audience for these books that hasn't been tapped. I think that there's an opportunity. Like, I'd love to see like a digital ad, like a flash ad that shows the panel sequences and an introduction to the story of these characters with a free digital code to download some of these issues. I'm a believer that would not hurt the retailer because of the fact that you're targeting people who aren't normally collectors. And your average collector isn't going to do a free download of 1 or 2 issues and not go and buy the paper copy if they want you know what I'm saying? If you're a paper collector, you're still going to do that. I'm not saying give the whole book away free, but why not give a couple of issues away on some of those horror sites? Link to them, sponsor them or something, and see if you can. And I mean, do like what DCB Service is doing, for example, where they did that $2.99 deal where they bundled the 4 together.
Yeah.
Give away the first 4 issues of the Dark Line or something. 4 issues, meaning 1 of each title. And then do a bundle deal. If you go with this special code digitally for like a $2.99 price point, you can get the second issue of these titles. You follow me? First issue free, second issue in a bundle. Then, that's an opportunity that maybe jumping off of that, some people will try issue 3 and 4 who haven't tried it before. It's early enough in the book's life that you could do that. You're not going after the crowd that I think too often they're targeting us with advertising, meaning the comic fan or even the lapsed comic fan. These books should be marketed towards people who don't read comics, who are horror genre fans, supernatural genre fans. I'd love to see an ad for this on the I know, I understand financially that's hard to do, but I'd love to see somehow an ad for this on the Supernatural TV show. You know what I mean? I think there's an audience there that's untapped that would maybe read something like this. But to me, if the ad's going to work, it's got to have story elements from each of these titles. This, Swamp Thing, Justice League Dark, things like that, should be Animal Man. These are titles that there should be, but this one especially to me and Swamp Thing I think would be cool leadoffs because they're unusual books. And I just think there's an audience for this. I want to keep reading this title. I think it's amazing. How is it for you being a vampire fan? I know for a while you were a very traditional vampire fan. How does this fit into that vein for you as a vampire story? I'm always curious of that one because I know you tend to be a little bit more hardcore on the vampire end than I am.
Yeah, it's when they first. This is a title when they first announced it. I was like, oh, okay, but I was like. I had American Vampire. I have a good vampire story. I don't need a second good vampire story. So, and I knew nothing about iVampire or any of the character at all. I didn't even know that he had existed before. So I was like, oh, okay. And so I wasn't that gung ho excited about it because I had a great story. I didn't need a second one. But once I started getting into this, once I started seeing it, I tell you, I'm really digging this because it's got that nice combination of that romantic element to it. A lot of good vampire stories have that in there, but you can't let go of the fact that these are creatures that feed on humans. These are creatures that kill humans. There is this horror element to it. There is this nasty side to them. And I love seeing the fact that within the main characters, we have one who wants to kill our main, who wants to kill the other main character. We have this thing where it's like, hey, you may have a foot in each world, but as long as one of those foots is rotten in is rotten in a grave, he ain't human. I'm going to take him down one day. Right now, no. But eventually that day is going to come. I'm driving a stake through his heart. I love the fact that right there within the main characters, the main hero group, one of them wants to kill the other one. You kind of need to have that little duality. You need to have that little edge to it. And you need to have the crazy monster side of this. Now, I do like it when vampires have control of their own will. When they are creatures have their own, where they do control themselves. They're not just mindless monsters. So the fact that we have some free will involved, we have some monster-ish, we have some animalistic tendencies. You got a beautiful blend of this vampire genre, the vampire story, and a lot of it is also based on age. The older you get, the stronger you get, the more control you have. The young ones, they're more animalistic because they just crossed over. I love seeing just the variations, and there's subtle variations between the different characters. It's a really strong vampire story that I'm really enjoying.
One of the things I really love about Tig is that our main character, our main vampire, knows things. Andrew, isn't it?
Yeah.
Andrew knows things about her father that she doesn't. The whole bit with the locket and with Dad, and how would she feel if she knew the truth about her dad? Because she's never known that truth. And I love that he's kept that secret, even though there would be a reason for him to reveal it. It would honestly be, I think, to his benefit to reveal it. But he's respecting her, the dad, and how potentially harmful emotionally that situation could be to reveal that. It's something, it actually jumped up Andrew, my respect for Andrew, because you want to be behind the quote-unquote hero of the story. So my sense of his moral code and morality really jumped up, in spite of who he is. That honor that he talks about when he's speaking to Batman in this issue means more because we've seen that in previous issues with him. It's funny, I don't have any background in this either, which is why, as I'm going along, I am finding that with each of the issues, which is why I brought that up. I am still trying to figure out the relationships these guys have with each other and their whole world. This is very new to me. iVampire, I know, has been a concept that's been around in DC, especially with J.M. DeMatteis, which I'm surprised I didn't read it, because I'm a J.M. DeMatteis fan. So the fact that I didn't read this, I don't know how I missed this. I actually want to seek out some of the earlier material, because J.M. DeMatteis is great. So anyway, I don't know the relationship with the professor and him, how they got all hooked up, and what's going on there. I'm enjoying following Andrew versus Mary. That's kind of my linchpin point, and Tig. That's what I'm attached to right now. I'm getting to know people as I go along. I love that we see these vampires turn, and there's an opportunity to save them, as long as you get there with a certain time point. Now, how true is that to vampire lore?
I've seen a lot of different stories where they've been able to cure and bring the person back, and it's I know Blade had it, where Blade developed the serum where they could turn people back, where they were just at the beginning. The original Bram Stoker, they had where they were giving human blood to try to bring back people, and after she'd been drained a lot, she hadn't actually fully crossed over, so there was some stuff there. So that's been a common element.
I like when Batman has an encounter with him. We see that Batarang. First of all, I like that. I like that it was the movie one. I'm into the whole movie one. I think the movie one looks pretty cool. But I also like when they have that relationship. It's a feeling out process for Batman, where Batman never loses his confidence. This is a Batman, who's clearly seen so much at this point, that with metahumans and things like that, that he's not going to stop just because it's a vampire and just because this guy's vanishing into mist. He's going to use the gadgets at his disposal. I loved the hand flash. Yeah. I love, that he pulled that out of his belt, and you get to see that sequence. I thought the art sequence there was great, because nice visuals that he's pulling these things out of his utility belt and taking. For a man who's a human, you need to be able to, and this is what I've always loved about Batman, one little tiny thing can provide that few seconds that gives you the necessary edge that you might need to overcome a situation, whereas another human would have been overtaken there. And it really is a quick use of a gadget, being smart, making a use of your surroundings, that has always given Batman his edge, and I love that. It was a great sequence between the two of them of feeling each other out, building respect. This was a confrontation between the two that I understand. It's a scene of a crime. And Batman seeing this guy who clearly was a part of what was going on the train, in his eyes, he wants to know what the guy's role is, what he is, because he's determined right now he's not something that exists. It turned out to be a great Batman story as well in this issue. This is how you do an appearance with Batman. You tell a story that feels very at home in Batman, while at the same time adding another respect level to the fact that this guy's holding his own against Batman. Well,
and one of the things I liked about this sequence was just the one line he had with them. He's like, "No wonder they hate humans.
Yeah.
So pig-headed." Right there, again, he's distinguishing himself. He is different than humans. He isn't human anymore. He is something different. And I love that, just that little distinction that, this is why they hate you. This is why, this is the, and it was just a quick one panel thing, but for me, that was another great vampiric statement that he is not human. He is different than you.
He's not also. He's also not one of they, because he's the pronoun choice there. I'm not contradicting anything you're saying. I'm building on it. One of the things I loved is not only does it show he's not human, but it also shows he's a different element because he's not part of them. He's an island under himself. It's kind of funny to talk about this one post Aquaman, because he is another fish out of water, or a bat out of water, however you want to look at it, a bat in the sky. He isn't a part of either world. He can't be a part of them. We actually saw that. He's been hunted now. He's been offered opportunities to come back to their side, and that's off the table now, because I think he's burnt that bridge. But he's not a human, and he's aware of that duality. The fact that he's not a part of them. So pronoun use there was terrific. I agree with you. That was an important sequence of events, a great way of establishing that.
Here's the funny thing. I think he could actually get back into the vampire world. I think if he were to give up his current cause and embrace, Mary and what she's got going on, she would eventually welcome him back. He would, of course, would have to slaughter his friends, just as a sign of that he truly is with them. But I think he could find his way back in, because she also does care about him, in her own way. I think he could find his way back, and I think he could actually rejoin his old world.
But he'd have the same problem he has in the human world, where there would be some vampires that remember he was the turncoat.
Right.
And wouldn't trust him. And I think he's going to have that in the human world. You got the professor, who has embraced him as a friend and trusts him, and actually to the point where he almost sees him as human in his defenses of him.
Yeah.
But then you're going to have a Tig. Always going to have a Tig. Who's going to, he's a vampire, he's an abomination, we need to kill him, I want to chop his head off. I am very curious to see the development of the Tig story. It's funny, the reason why I'm not as focused as the professor right now. Like, I was stumbling over what is actually his role. I do that every time I think about the professor when I see him. I'm like, is he a police officer, a professor? What is he? I don't know. Because I'm more focused on Tig. The Tig thing has me glued. I think she's a great supporting character. The professor, I love his purpose. He's well written in what he does, but it's really all eyes are on Tig right now and what's going to happen there. Because that reveal's got to come at some point. And what is
She's
that? She's
not going to deal with it well.
No.
Yeah, I'm thinking this could be the exit of Tig from the series, just in the fact that she can't hang out with him anymore over the truth. And it's not even over the truth, it's the fact that he knew and didn't tell her, and
why is she with him now?
What?
She wants to kill him now.
Right.
I don't see, I'm going to disagree. I'm going to because if she hasn't left him now, I don't know that her goals are going to.
No. Okay, I'm not saying she's going to leave him. I'm saying they're going to leave her. She will reach the point that it's no longer I want to kill you. It's I'm going to kill you now. So when they get to that point, he's got the choice. Either I kill her or I avoid her. So he's going to have to, avoid her and separate themselves from her and hide. She's going to be a hunter of him. She's going on the road, going on the warpath for him, so they will have to avoid it. That's what I mean by leaving the group. I don't think she'll be written off the series. She'll still be around, but she won't be traveling with them.
See, here's the thing, though. I think there's another part of me who's going to say, he didn't tell me to protect my illusion of my mother, what we were doing, keeping me in touch with who I am, because knowing that shatters her entire world and how she views it. Because she's been killing creatures who are like her father. Mm-hmm. Thinking that she was doing this to avenge her mother, her father, and everything. Knowing the truth, what is that going to mean for her? How can she view vampires the way she has been? Can she view them the way she has been? What does that mean for her father? Is she going to want to kill him or not? I don't know that there's... the funny thing is I think there's a real big gray area to take. I think everything you said is possible, but I think there's another possibility to this whole thing, depending on how she finds out. Because I don't think, is it that she's going to be told, or that she's going to have an encounter with Dad, or that situation? I don't know.
I'm thinking she's not going to be told. I think it's going to be one of the most inopportune moments for it to find out for her to find out is when she's going to find out, and that's why things are going to get nasty. Things are going to go. And it'll be a combination of the fact that he kept information from her. It's not just why why he kept information's one reason, but when you're expressed with that extreme emotional experience, she's not going to sit there and logically think about it. And she's going to hold on to that anger. She's going to hold on to that negative side of it. And it's not good. She's not going to look at it saying, well, he did this for my good. No, she's not going to see that, because she's going to be filled with such rage, such anger over everything, that she's going to need that focal point. And, we got our focal point.
Hold on. She can't encounter Dad, because Dad's headless. Right. I keep forgetting about that. I just went back and looked. I'm like, wait a minute. I think I'm wrong on this.
Yeah.
I forgot about Dad begging for mercy and all that, and how that all worked out. But I don't know. I like the Tig story.
Oh, yeah, I do, too. I dig Tig. I think she's a cool character. And it's, again, I was laughing every time she sits there and says she wants to kill him. Like,
right.
That whole sequence with Batman. It's like hell, he's a vampire. He's in love with the one that did this. Kill him. Better yet, let me.
Well, here's the funny part. How is she going to react to him killing her dad? Because he did that.
Yeah. Well, again, she was hunting down her father, as a child. So that was part of who they were, or how she saw her life, and that's how she thought what they were doing.
Yeah, so I don't know.
So it's, on one hand, I'm like, maybe she won't have an issue with it, but I can't see her not having an issue with it. She's, part of the reason I really do think she'll have an issue is she's got so much anger and rage bottled up inside her just because of her life, just because of everything she's dealt with, she's lost a childhood, she's lost her, just a normal life. And if she has just one more piece of bad information stockpiled on it, she can go over the edge. And when you go over the edge, you're just going to look for a target. You're going to look for one thing. And I think she's got it right in front of her. And that's where she'll go after, where she'll direct her anger, where she'll direct her rage. And I want to see what happens. I want to see it happen. I want to see it go down, because I think it'll be a great story. I feel bad for her, as a person, but story-wise, I'm looking forward to that moment. I'm looking forward to the moment of revelation, just to see what she does with it.
Now, the moment with the Professor and Batman in the elevator I thought was really important, because I would be in the same mode as Batman was. It's a vampire, so you know what they need to survive. So there's that part of you that I would like to think that I'm an open-minded enough person, but I would also be, like Batman, very leery, where you're sitting there saying, am I being played? Are you being played, Professor? Which is the first thing he's asking there. Are you in control of your own mind, or is he controlling you? And the Professor coming there saying, you're supposed to be the great detective, so detect. And why hasn't he killed you yet? All these great questions are being put out there on the table. So I love that Batman isn't just saying, hey, we're pals all of a sudden. We're working together for now. And I love that Batman's even saying things like, I don't like to kill, but you should have been dead a long time ago. So Batman sees a distinction, a gray area here to his own moral code. How do you view somebody who's undead? And what does that mean for him? As far as, is that a violation of his code?
I definitely would say no, and I think Batman will drop these vampires if he needs to. Now, if he's presented with the option, he needs to. Now, the changelings, the young ones that can be saved, those are going to be the ones where he won't kill. He'll do everything he can not to kill them, because he's found out that they can come back, they can be saved. Those are victims. But once you get to a certain age where there's no coming back, guess what? You should already be dead. There is no murder there. It's, they're already dead. These aren't humans. These are, take them down. And I think in his mind, that's where he's set. And I think Bruce can do it.
I love that we have Tig's dialogue throughout all this. That's the point where, she's talking about the fact that she's killed so many vampires and things like that. It was the point where they wouldn't turn them.
Yeah.
Meaning that they would never want them a part of their society. They will kill them regardless. She considers that flattering because she does not want to be a part of their world. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens when she finds out that her dad loved her until the end. how she's going to feel about that. Because I think that is going to be something. How would that not affect you? Or make you question that stance? Not saying that she'd want to become a vampire, but I mean her constant bloodlust towards every vampire. To realize that her dad still had an awareness.
And still... Yeah, it's... I don't know. That is going to be a tough thing. That will be an interesting... and it's funny because that could be a way for her to lock her tighter into this group and make her... But I still do hold on to just the anger and the rage. Now, if she's out, just on that pure anger, just attacking him, and he doesn't kill her, and he keeps fighting and saying, no, I'm not... and it's that whole struggle where I could have killed you 1,000 times, but I'm trying to help you. It may open up some... it may give her a little bit of clarity and an understanding, and there could be something, but I don't know. I'm holding on to the fact that she's going to just go off on him. Even finding out the knowledge, even finding out everything about her dad, and just, it's that whole shock to the system. What she knew was this, it's one thing. She had this set, she knew 100% this is the truth. Well, guess what? You were wrong. Boom. Flip your world upside down. And, I'm still thinking she's going to, lose it.
This is a cool book. It's something that I'm glad with the New 52 when they were relaunching. We talked about this. This is an example of really diversifying your lineup. They don't have a book like this in the main DC universe. I was with you with American Vampire. I'm really digging that comic. I really wanted this, if they were going to do this, to be different. It's incredibly different. It's just as different as, for example, Aquaman and Batman are both superhero books. If you just discount them as that, you're really missing the point on how distinct those two characters are. This is a great... American Vampire and this are two very different animals. Both great high-quality books who deliver very different experiences. So if you dismiss this because you're liking a book like American Vampire or something, do yourself a favor and check this baby out, because it's really cool. It's different. And I like the distinction. There's a lot of room for this. It's great characters. It's very new to me. I'm still feeling my way through it 5 issues in, but it's not a book that in a million years I'd drop right now. I'm really digging the ride. It's one that I don't want to say it's gotten better all along, because I read it, like I said, I read the first 4 issues kind of back to back. It was only because I was stockpiling it that way. I just never got to it. And when I started reading it right from issue 1, this one grabbed me. This is new, very new experience to me. Like in this issue, Batman's my character that I know real well. But I do feel by now I'm into Andrew. I'm into his cause. I'm into his fight. I'm into the fact that this guy's willing to stand against the others. But it's really left him, in many ways, more so than we were talking with Aquaman. This guy really is more a fish out of water, because there is no Mira for him.
Yeah.
The professor's there, but I'm with Batman that I question, how strong a relationship is that? Is that something that, because of Andrew's relationship with him? I don't know. I want to know over time. I want to see what that relationship, how much conviction there is to that friendship as time goes on. I like the fact that there's a lot of gray areas to this book. It's interesting to me. I like the main character. I like Tig. The professor's growing on me, too, because I liked his defense of Andrew there, in the elevator. That was a great sequence for me. I love Andrew commenting on, Batman's disappearing act and the cape, and, these are things that he's finding that are cool. He's finding certain things about Batman that are like the way he operates with his... So there's something where he's making a connection with this guy, like, I like this fella. There's something here with him. That's an interesting relationship there between the two. I'm going to be curious to see after next issue what that relationship's like when it's done. And I don't know that that's going to be a very simple thing either.
And something I don't think we've talked enough about that I just really want to make public and everybody knows. I loved just the look of this book.
Oh yeah,
this is a great vampire-looking book. And it's not even just the drawing. The colorist in this is doing an outstanding job. I loved how it shifts from, you have the moments where you have like the raging vampires where you have a heavy focus on the red. You have to have that just because of the blood, because of the bloodlust. And then you'll have panels where it's, multiple, non-traditional panels side by side where you have the humans who are fighting and you got the vampire rage with the red. So you got a heavy red to a bluish shaded type. Everything's taking place at night, but it's never so shaded that you lose the detail. You lose the terror in someone's eyes. You don't lose these great details, these great moments, as well as even just a background sequence of what is Gotham City in this. You see some cool Gotham in the backdrop, because anytime you tell a story in that city, the town has to play a factor. It has to be another character in the book, and they definitely did not lose that in this book. We see Gotham here. We see a different, style, flow, and just that general tone is different here than the previous issues, and it needed to be, because this is where they were. I love that.
Totally agree. Yeah, I don't really have much else to say other than that this is a title that if you've been missing and you're interested in vampires at all, I think this is one. I think it's accessible if you have no exposure to vampires at all, because I'm not a huge vampire guy. I like books like American Vampire and stuff like that, but, I'm not one that, I have to seek out vampire literature and that type of thing. I enjoy the stories when they're well written, and this is one, it's very well written, and I agree with you, the artwork is woof. What a great choice of a creative team for this title. So it's one that if you're missing it, do yourself a favor and check it out.
Now I can get out of here!
Jim, the big news this week has been the Before Watchmen announcement. Rorschach, 4 issues, Brian Azzarello, Lee Bermeo. Minutemen, 6 issues, writer-artist Darwin Cook. Comedian, 6 issues, writer Brian Azzarello, artist J.G. Jones. Dr. Manhattan, 4 issues, writer J. Michael Straczynski, artist Adam Hughes. Night Owl, 4 issues, writer J. Michael Straczynski, artists Andy and Joe Kubert. Ozymandias, writer Len Wein, artist Jay Lee. Silk Spectre, writer Darwin Cook, and artist Amanda Connor. And that's a 4-issue miniseries. So we've got, and then there's going to be a 2-page backup story in each issue, Curse of the Crimson Corsair, which is written by Len Wein with art by John Higgins, so who's the original series colorist. So it's interesting to see this. You know what's really baffling me? This negative outcry before this thing's even been released. You haven't even read the product. And there's people who are trashing it it is the most unholiest thing you've ever heard. Oh my God, they're writing a comic story about something that hasn't been covered before? Oh no.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm actually not surprised at the outcry, and it is what it is. Yeah, I'm looking forward to these stories. I want to see where people go with, especially when I read the creative team. Conceptually, when it was discussed and possibilities, I was like, I don't know if you should do it. But then once they started saying what they're doing and who's working it, I'm really excited to read Brian Azzarello writing Comedian. I really want to see that. And Darwin Cook and Amanda Connor on Silk Spectre, I'm like, whoa, that should be good. Yeah. So there's some stuff I'm really looking forward to this, and I just want to see where this goes. It's this should be, this has a really potential to be something really neat and really fun.
Yeah, well, my attitude's always though, I guess I've never had that experience where somebody makes an announcement, I go, oh my God, they're going to publish what? If I don't want to read it, I just don't read it. It's just I've got so many things I want to read. They'll be like, okay, cool, something else I don't have to put in my budget. It's that. There's so many comics out there right now. I just don't have time for that. The people who've written pages of stuff how this is some kind of an abomination. It's really? It was funny. I'm a huge Alan Moore fan, and I knew he wouldn't like this. And you told me what he ended up. Do you want to share what he ended up saying about it?
Well, I read an interview where he said you wouldn't. You don't. It's something like we haven't seen a sequel or a prequel to Moby Dick. And I was like, oh, that's a kind of a neat statement that just because you could write it, there's no point in writing it. And when I told you that quote, how did you respond to that?
Those characters were in League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. He used them again. And I look at this as the same thing. It's not Alan Moore's work, so obviously it's going to be these creators' takes on these characters, which is cool. It's interesting, but it doesn't to me invalidate Watchmen. Watchmen is its own contained piece, and that's great. And every I look at Alan Moore's work as being just that, and the same with any other creator. That's their work. It's like a creator's run on a comic series. Alan Moore had a terrific run on Swamp Thing. And that's his run. And nothing, no matter how many creators work with Swamp Thing, that's not going to change that was his run, his story. And I don't know. I just think that these characters are meant to be used again, and there's stories that I think we all want to know. What were they like beforehand? Now, they could be great. They might not be. Until they're released, though, I don't know. But I like the characters enough that I want to know that. But my attitude is there's a lot of comics I don't pick up because I'm just not interested. But I'm not like, I don't mind if somebody says, I'm just not really interested in that. Okay, fine, that's your cup of tea, and cool that you're saying that. But the people that are writing, multiple pages, this was we'd ruined their religion or something, was the craziest thing in the world. I don't get it. I don't get all these angry people about comics. I think they're missing the point of the hobby. To me, I look at a book that's maybe not delivering the way it used to as an opportunity for me to grab something that will be.
Now, the thing with me, I'm wondering, is prequel versus sequel. Mm-hmm. Now, I would say, personally, I was more interested in the sequel story, but I like the fact they're doing this prequel. In that way, we could use all the characters. We can use all the people how their interactions were before. Now, I always like the sequel stories because I'm curious what happened to them. We know, at the end of Watchmen, a couple people are dead, a couple people are out in the universe, but that whole thing with Rorschach dropping off his journal, so all the truth got out there. Were they able to bury the information? What happened between Silk Spectre and Night Owl? Between the two of them, there's a lot of questions I wanted to know, and in a way, I'm glad they're not doing that, because I would want to see what Alan Moore had in mind for these characters follow up.
I don't think he had anything in mind for them. I think that story was pretty definitive at the end. I guess I would clarify. I wouldn't mind seeing a Silk Spectre Night Owl miniseries talking about what happens to them after the fact. But there's certain characters like Dr. Manhattan, I think it needs to be a little vague on what became of him. Because of where he went. Yeah. I wouldn't want that necessarily. I don't know that needs to be defined. I mean, maybe there's a clever creator out there who's got a great Dr. Manhattan story, so good, tell it. That's kind of the point. I mean, I don't know, these stories and characters and things like that, I don't think characters are instantly you can't use that character anymore. Oh, no. I mean, it doesn't I don't think that ever invalidates. It's I've got favorite Batman runs, and I've got other runs that I think have been good Batman runs. But I don't think because they're still using Batman that invalidates any of those runs that creators have had on that book. But you can do that with smaller characters, and say the same thing, that these characters have been used again, and to varying degrees of success. I don't know. I don't get that these characters can't be used. I prefer, personally myself, I think the prequel's the better direction to go with this, because there's a lot of background story that I think Moore did lay out and hint at in his story, and there's an opportunity to flesh those things out, knowing who these characters were, and with Moore doing such a clever job of defining them in that story, there's an opportunity to do that without invalidating the work of Watchmen. I don't know, I think because of the fact that it's such an important story to fans. I love Watchmen. I think it's one of the all-time great stories, and these are characters who I do want to know something about. But, the funny part is, would we say the same thing? Watchmen originally was supposed to be characters from the Charlton universe. So I guess what's baffling me about the whole premise isn't that then a sequel to the Charlton universe? I mean, why was that okay and this is not? I guess I don't understand the argument. It doesn't make any sense to me. I think if somebody went and rewrote Watchmen, that I would have a little bit more of a baffling effect to. Like when they remade Psycho, a great example of that. I thought the Hitchcock version of Psycho was pretty darn terrific, and I think it still holds up today. The remake wasn't bad. I saw it. It was an enjoyable movie, but throughout the whole thing, I'm kind of like, why did we need to do this? I don't get it. That would be more of an outcry I'd have, where it'd be like, yes, and, these two, Brian Azzarello and Lee Bermeo, just picking the first two, writing on Rorschach. have decided to rewrite Watchmen. I mean, what? What are you doing? Why would you do that? That I would have an outcry over. But telling new stories with those characters, it's... The original premise of Watchmen was to use the Charlton characters. So how? I guess I don't get it. Why is that okay? It doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, it's funny because I can say that, but it does make some sense to me. For some reason, I'm not that protective of the Watchmen characters. I love the story. Don't get me wrong, and I love the movie, and that in itself, by saying I love the movie, some people will say, oh, then you really didn't like the book. I'm like, no, I enjoyed the story. I enjoyed the characters. I enjoyed what happened in it. But there are some characters that, if they were to really, tweak and change around, I would be very protective of.
Whoa, hold on. We're talking about two different things, though. This isn't tweaking or changing around the characters. This is telling additional stories with these characters. There's a huge distinction on what what you're talking about here. Like, I'm protective of the Watchmen characters. Like, if I read these miniseries and they're clearly not, like, I'm going to sit there and say, why would you do a Rorschach miniseries and it not be Rorschach? There's a distinction between the two things we're saying here.
Right. And I think...
Go ahead.
I think that's what people are more worried about. They're seeing this as, a changing, as a retelling. They're worried that this is not going to be the same Rorschach or the same Night Owl or the same comedian. They're worried that they're going to change the characters. That is how, when I read the criticism and the commentary and all the outcry, that's what I'm getting the feeling from the people who are saying this. I could be completely wrong, but when I read their words, I'm like, okay, it sounds to me like they're worried that they're going to change around. They're not going to be true to the characters.
Well, it's not like Watchmen 2.0. It's called Before Watchmen. They're telling the prequel stories to these characters. So I guess I don't get that. What indicates that at all? And especially bringing in the original series editor. I mean, obviously the goal here is to tell additional Watchmen stories. So I guess that argument, if that's what people are worried about, I completely don't get. Having Len Wein involved, I mean, obviously, if they could have gotten Alan Moore, they would have. We know that's never happening in a million years. So, I mean, what can you get closer than having Len Wein, who has delivered throughout the years? I mean, Len Wein's a major talent. And then, I mean, obviously the creative teams that are attached to this, but having Len Wein involved as well, I think is really a sign that, like, hey, we want to make sure we have all the checks and balances in place. We want to deliver something. I don't know. I just think it's a great move, and everything on paper looks good to me. Now, it might not deliver. I mean, or one of them might not deliver. Some of them might not deliver. I don't know. You don't know until you get them. It's just, it's baffling to me. I don't like, to me, there's never a character that I've read that I haven't wanted to know. Like, you were talking about, you wanted to know what happened to Silk Spectre and Night Owl. I agree with you. I'd love to know what happens to them. That's part of comics. It's a serialized medium. Like, you want to know, these are like, these are soap operas. I mean, for all extensive purposes, these are characters you get to know, and you want to know more about them. I want to know their backstory. I want to know where they're going. There's certain situations like Dr. Manhattan. That's one where I'm kind of like, would I want to know more, like a sequel to him? I don't know. I would read it, if somebody was doing it. I think that would be a little tricky, though, because I think the way Moore left that at the end of the series was pretty darn brilliant. And I mean, obviously Rorschach is gone. Ozymandias, I mean, that's pretty much a done issue as well. I don't know where you go, with that type of thing. So I don't know. The whole thing just it just baffles me. I guess I don't get the criticism. I guess I really don't.
And it is a way I do understand it. I don't agree with it. I'm like you. I'm looking forward to these stories. I want to see what's going to happen, what they're doing. But, I do understand it because I do have my protection of some characters, and, I think I would be a little bit nervous. Here, for example.
Okay.
Stephen King, absolutely wonderful writer. Mm-hmm. I love his work. But if he were to write a prequel to Interview with the Vampire, or a prequel to The Vampire Lestat, and use Lestat as a character, and tell us what happened to Lestat before, Interview with the Vampire, before... I would be like, what? That's an Anne Rice book. That's Anne's. That's not his. Stephen King's a great writer, but he can't write like Anne Rice. He can't create, the way she created the character. His take on the character will be a little different just because he is a different person.
Yeah, I guess, but how do you know unless he's done it?
Exactly.
I mean, I guess
keep an open mind.
Yeah.
But I tell you, that would be my first reaction. My first gut reaction would be exactly that. And then I'd sit there, logically think about it. I'd say, okay, this is Stephen King we're talking about. He's a talented writer. He knows what he's doing. He probably has done a lot of research on it. He's set, and he's just not going to go halfway with it. He's going to go full, all out, all in. I'm okay with it. I trust in Stephen King. I trust. I'm going to see what happens. But there would be a period where it would take me time to get to that point, to get to that trusting moment. And then when I read the book, that's when I would either justify or reevaluate.
But do you think that the idea of more Lestat stories is something that should never happen?
The concept, no. If Anne Rice were to say, "Hey, I'm going to write some more Lestat stories,"
no. Take Anne Rice out of it.
Take it. See, that's
let's say that it's on the table for whatever reason. I mean, books are a little bit different as far as the ability to use characters and stuff like that. Let's say Anne Rice gives somebody permission, or years later, Anne Rice has passed away or something. Because I'll use a great example: James Bond, Ian Fleming creation. There's a lot of John Gardner is a writer I'm thinking of right off the top of my head. Wrote wonderful James Bond novels post Ian Fleming. We wouldn't be getting new James Bond stories if it wasn't for stuff like that. And, writers that have come after him have done a great job as well. But the Gardner books in particular, I remember reading all of them. And they were fantastic James Bond stories. The Stephen King Anne Rice comparison, the only reason why that loses something for me is because Stephen King, as a writer, I love Stephen King. I just don't see him writing it just doesn't fit. Not that and I agree with you, he'd do the research and do all that. I know, I've read Anne Rice's books, I've read Stephen King's books. The style is so different that I have a little trouble wrapping my head around that comparison, but I get where you're going with that. Let's take somebody who's a newer writer or something like that, who maybe is very into Anne Rice's work and wants to do a Lestat story, somehow gets permission or whatever, whatever channels you have to go through to do that. I would want to read more Lestat. I wouldn't immediately condemn it. I would be nervous, like you're mentioning, because it's a character that I like as well. So actually, your example's a good one because I like Lestat as well. I also think there's a certain romance and sexuality and certain things to Anne Rice's work that she has a balance of what she did in there that I think you have to have a writer who really understands how to play those games in their writing in order to make that work. So I would have to be somebody who could play that off, but I would not. I don't think that's. I think it's been a long time since we've gotten a Lestat story. I'd love to see a new one. Personally, that's me because I like the character, and I want to see somebody do it right. So that'd be the catch. So I don't know. I guess I get protective of characters too, but I would not want to see more stories with those characters. Well, Star Wars is a great example of that. I think there's a lot of writers who have, like Timothy Zahn.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. I mean, Timothy Zahn, I think all three of those Heir to the Empire stories should have been films. I mean, that was the sequels to Star Wars right there, and it was brilliantly done. And if we'd said that nobody else can write Star Wars but George Lucas, we wouldn't get... I mean, there's some amazing stuff currently being published today by Dark Horse, Star Wars. They're not being published by George Lucas. They're being... I mean, obviously they get approval from Lucas and all that. Great. And it's terrific how that universe has grown. But, oh my gosh, John Ostrander, I mean, the stuff he's doing with Star Wars has been amazing. So, I don't know. I mean, I don't think that you can't use characters with other writers. As the key is, same thing we say with this reboot, with the New 52, we've been saying this left and right. As long as it's true to the characters, those are the ones that are going to be the most successful. Those are the ones as fans that we're going to latch onto. In the same thing with this before Watchmen, I see nothing in these announcements to indicate anything other than they're trying to be true to the original idea behind these characters. You know, they're not rebooting it. They're not relaunching it. They're telling the stories of what happened before. So they're not, like, zeroing out everything that Moore wrote. They're not trying to contradict anything that Moore wrote. They're going beforehand and telling us the stories. I wanted to know who these characters were beforehand. You know, and there's an opportunity to do this that if he'd used the Charlton characters, you know, if that had worked out that way, I don't know that we would have had an opportunity to have these stories. Because, you know, this, with the fact that these are characters who were created specifically for Watchmen now, and certainly fitting into some of those categories, there's a chance to tell these. I don't know. I just hope they're great. I love the fact that Len Wein's involved. That, to me, is a big feather in their cap. But I don't want to take anything away from the creative teams that are announced on these books. I just think they're great creators. Overall, everybody's on there. There's not a bad name associated with this. I mean, It looks great. I don't know how you look at this and don't see that. I just don't get it. Other than that, maybe then you just move along. I don't know. It's maybe you're just Watchmen out and you don't want to read more Watchmen. Cool. That's your cup of tea. That's fine. But it's the venom that's out there that I guess to me, I'm getting very frustrated with every time there seems to be a comic book announcement. It's not exclusive to Watchmen. Anytime there's a big announcement, it seems to be there's this public outcry by quote-unquote fans who seem to just want to trash every announcement and won't let up. And I think it's doing horrible things to the industry. To me, it's like, at what point in time do I start believing you're a fan? Because, I don't know, as a kid, I'm a fanboy. Obviously, this is kind of the show that we do here. When we record these podcasts, you and I have never sat down and said, boy, we've got to be really positive this week. It's never been the issue. It's been, we pick books that we want to talk about because we're excited to chat about them. That's what comic fandom's all about. People have forgotten how to be fans. It's not just comic fandom. You're a Star Trek fan. All right, Daryl Taylor and I were just having a great conversation last night on the phone about just fandom and stuff like that in general. We talk periodically, and we had to talk for at least like 40 minutes. We probably could have recorded a podcast. But when we were talking, we got onto all kinds of different tangents. Star Trek came up because IDW's publishing a really cool ongoing Star Trek series. I don't know. Are you reading that?
No, I'm not.
I didn't think so. I told Daryl, I said, I don't think Jim's reading this. I'm like, I said, out of the two of us, he's more of the Trekkie. And I'm reading this thing, and it's outstandingly cool. But the point was, think about the geek culture with Star Trek and the fan culture with all that. And how much, why do we get into that? Because the shows are great. There's been great novels. There's a lot to geek out about with the Star Trek universe, the films, everything. When was the last time you had a Star Trek fan going, oh my God, they're doing another Star Trek story? Another Star Trek film? No, we all hope for the same thing. We hope they do another film, and we hope the film is fantastic. You know what I mean? You don't get mad like, oh, they're going to do another one? Another Star Trek TV show? Really? I mean, have you ever had that experience? You hope it's good, right?
Yeah, I'm the same way as with you. I'm looking forward to the next story, looking forward to the new one, but it happens everywhere. Anytime you have some type of fan base of something, there will be the negative people. There will be the people who are like, you're doing something now that's destroying the past. And that's not true, but it's within any and every possible era that could have a fanboy in it, could have that super fan. They're so loyal to what was done in the past, they don't want to accept anything new. Yeah. Saw Star Wars, saw Star Trek even. When they did the whole Star Trek reboot where it was the new cast and retelling the story, a lot of the traditional old school Star Trek fans said, hey, that's not my Star Trek. I'm not going to watch it. And there was a lot of people, there was a lot of
venom. They weren't picketing.
When Next Generation came out, there was a lot of venom towards it, with the old school, the purist of the Star Trek genre. They're like, no. And so every time they've done a new Star Trek TV show or a movie or something, there have been the people who have had the venom towards it. It's a concept that I don't understand because I don't do that. I'm like, okay, I'll be nervous about something, but I won't have venom towards it until I actually see it, until I actually experience it. If it's something that doesn't fit right, doesn't make sense to me, then I'm like, they shouldn't have done it. But up until that point of actually seeing it, I don't have the venom. I have concern, fear, trepidation, whatever you want to call it, towards it. But there are a lot of people out there, and I think it's just they're so passionate about what they enjoy that they close off to the possibility that there may be something else equally enjoyable.
See, I don't grow up seeing the outcry, the negative venom that you're seeing now. I saw people. The Star Trek's a great example. I've been at many a con, and I'm talking about before the internet got really big. Small local cons, stuff like that, where I'd talk to friends, and you see a guy wearing a Star Trek shirt, an old Captain Kirk one, for an example. I'd sit next to the guy and ask him if he watched Next Generation, and we'd be chatting. And he would sit there and say, no, I refuse to watch Next Generation because Captain Kirk was my captain. That's the guy I follow. But it wasn't this, like, anger. It was like, no, I'm a Captain Kirk fan. That's my thing. I'll watch all those movies. I watched the crossover movie, the Generations one where they were both in it. But, he said, that's my captain. That's the one who I follow. That's what I'm into. And I'm assuming that person, because this is way before the new movie, I'm assuming that person probably wasn't too keen on the idea of there being a new movie. But I don't think this guy was out picketing. There's a distinction between I'm protective of my past. This is what I want. This is what I liked. And so I'm not going to try the new thing. And the internet nowadays, I think it's destructive to fandom. I think it starts people off with a negativity that's just really insane. I don't have enough time in my day to sit there and go, I've really got to go to a site, trash something that's being redone. I'm trying to think of what's that series with the vampire, the werewolf, and the ghost?
Being Human.
Okay. I haven't watched the Sci-Fi Channel version. I was a big fan of the BBC version. I've been watching that as it's been going on. Not because I don't like the series or I think it's a bad idea that they did a U.S. version. It's just typically when it's a British show, I find that I mostly prefer the British version. That's me. I like what the UK did originally with it. I haven't seen it. I'm not going on forums going, oh my God, they made a U.S. version of Being Human. What are they thinking? Those idiots. I just didn't watch it. Now, I might try it down the road. I might not. But, that's why I'm not watching it. That's the part where I don't get it. I understand the premise that, you just kind of prefer the original. And that's a great example. But I'm not like Sherlock Holmes. I like the new Sherlock series. I liked Sherlock Holmes as a kid. Have I watched and listened to every version of Sherlock Holmes that's been out there? No, because I've been kind of I don't need to, there comes a point where you're sitting there I just don't need new versions of it. I've kind of been here, done this. The new series by BBC is a rather different take on the whole thing, so I'm really enjoying that. But, I don't think something is an abomination just because they're doing their own little take on it. Even the Psycho example I used earlier. Fine, they did it. For me, it wasn't up to par with the original, but that I don't think that they were. I'm sitting here going, "Oh my God, we should start burning their houses down because they made this thing." I don't get that mentality. It just doesn't work for me. I just thought it was interesting to talk about because that's been the funny part with this announcement. I think it's becoming more and more common with comic announcements that there's just this negative outpouring, and it's. I think people have forgotten how. I'm not saying in general. I think a lot of the people that listen to this show listen to us because we're kind of in the same place. We're just fans. I think there's people listening to this show that listen to this right now. They're like, I'm just not going to pick it up. It's not my thing. I was happy with Watchmen, but I've kind of moved along. Fine. That's your thing. There's other people that are really excited about it. I don't think there's a lot of people who listen to us. I think they would stop listening a long time ago because we're not their cup of tea, clearly. Yeah. I'm pretty convinced of that. Not everybody who reads a DC comic listens to this show. The people who are listening to this right now are kind of in our wheelhouse, that are kind of I just want to read my books and enjoy them. That's kind of, that's kind of the cup of tea that I think that's our listener base, I hope. I'm pretty confident in that, just from the phone calls and, forum responses and stuff we've gotten, that, we've got some pretty like-minded people. We might like different things, but, it's our attitude towards this medium. This is an escape from all of life's nonsense, not something that's meant to add more stress to our life. That's the part that baffles me. I'm like, you really are getting that upset over your comics? Really? And this is just an announcement. Really? It's funny. I don't know. When you called, I was just thinking that. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, just to let you know, the American version is really good, by the way. I would recommend it.
And wait, I've heard that. So I'm not. Please don't take me as bashing Being here. I haven't seen it. I'm just using that to illustrate as an example. I'm watching so many programs right now that I just have not had a chance to watch the American version. I probably will because I like the UK version so much. And a great example of this would be the UK version of The Office. I thought was brilliant. My wife and I can't stop watching the US version, and I still love it, even though Steve Carell left. I still like the cast and everything. I'm enjoying watching, more of their hijinks. So, I mean, I'm not against watching when the U.S. does a take on it. But Skins. Skins was a pretty cool UK series. I haven't seen all of it, but I've seen the first few seasons of it. Really enjoyed it. I haven't watched the U.S. version of it. Just because I'm kind of like, I've gotten my fix. I think that's a better way of putting it. I got my fix from the UK version. I've got so many things that I'm trying to get caught up on. Like, I'm watching Dexter right now, trying to get caught up on that like, I don't have time to put in another program. So I'm not going to jump to the new version of that. But I'm not like upset that they made one. It's kinda, really? I just don't watch it.
Great molecules! They're programming the computers for a chain reaction to blow up that atomic pile!
You're just telling me something really funny, and I think we got to react to this. Because I do this myself. But go ahead. What are your...
Okay. When I talk with my hands. So my arms are flailing all over the place as I'm sitting here talking. And my headphones, on the cord itself, there's one of those wheels that control the volume. So I'm finding that as my arms are moving, I'm turning the wheel and dropping the volume down. Multiple times during the conversation of this book, I'd sit there and I'd get done and then there'd be complete silence. And I'm like, what? And then I'd have to check the volume. Sure enough, I had the volume down all the way down and I wasn't hearing half the stuff you said.
That's funny. I should sometimes stop talking just to make you check your volume control.
I really probably shouldn't have told you that.
It's kind of funny. Periodically, just to give dead air. Was I flailing again? On that note, Jim, our next book we're going to chat about is going to be Blackhawks number 5. Mike Costa's the writer. Cafu on pencils. Bitt is the inker. Guy Major is the colorist. Carlos M. Mangwell is the letterer. Ken Lashley on the cover. Chris Conroy and Matt Idelson are the editors. This book is one of the ones that's been canceled recently. I am very disappointed in that because this one, for me, what I'm liking about it is it has a G.I. Joe vibe to it. I grew up being a G.I. Joe fan. I love the cartoons. I've liked the comics, the Larry Hama stuff. I grew up with all that. IDW is doing a great job with some cool G.I. Joe stuff. This, to me, is a really cool use of the Blackhawks concept. I think I read maybe from flea markets 1 or 2 issues of Blackhawks, the original series. I know I've paged through or looked at. I don't remember if it was ones that I owned or if a friend owned or something like that. I don't have a big exposure to them other than in crossovers throughout the years, where the characters have appeared in like Brave and the Bold or something like that. I couldn't even tell you if it was that or DC Comics Presents or wherever. I've read Blackhawks more that way. We were big fans of Zinda, Lady Blackhawk from Birds of Prey. So I was excited for this. I'm like, okay, it's a great chance for me to kind of get exposed to like a modern day concept of the Blackhawks. Really been digging this book right since issue 1. I've loved the whole tech gadget thing. I love the building of the squad and how each member of the squad has a different role and the relationships that are there. I love the whole nanotechnology and what happens when you get infected by it. And have you been compromised or are you still part of the team? Those whole little intrigue elements that are there. I love that the government is investigating the Blackhawks, their sources of funding, also the way that they operate and what they have accomplished to the point where the government agent that was in there asked to be it was a senator, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Asked to be assigned to continue monitoring the Blackhawks because he wanted to know more. He got intrigued by the whole thing. I found this book very intriguing. This is one I'm very sad is being canceled because I really like this book. It's cool. And it's that G.I. Joe vibe. It really is for me. This is to me like a DC G.I. Joe. And it's a cool action story, really cool characters. That's what I'm getting out of it. It's fitting that wheelhouse for me. Where are you at with this book, though? I don't know if we're in the same place, but this is a book I've been digging.
We're not in the same place. This is a book when they announced it. This was one of those titles where I was like, really, do we need this book? And that's how I started the process began with the Blackhawks. I was like, do we need this book? And I read the first couple issues, like, okay, yeah, it never was anything that got me passionate, it got me excited. I was enjoying the stories, and some of this later stuff, as it's building on it, I'm enjoying it more, but there isn't that locked-in passion for it. This is, I can't even say, I'm not saying that I think it's bad work, because it's not. It's good work, but there was never any rereadability for me. There was never any, I got to go back and reread this just for the fun of it. I read it, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's kind of neat, and I moved on. That G.I. Joe analogy you had is actually one of the reasons that I wasn't as passionate about it. I was like, this isn't G.I. Joe. I was thinking, like, this is like G.I. Joe. And for me, when somebody is doing something that's like something else, I always will lean towards the original. And I'll lean towards that. I'm like, okay, you're just trying to impersonate that. And I'm like, this isn't, and it was just something weird where I just, for some reason, because I had the G.I. Joe past, because I liked that concept, because I enjoyed that, I wasn't as into this. And it's weird. It's a duality, and it's a little bit on the off on my end. I will admit that, but for some reason, it was just keeping me from saying, yes, Blackhawks, hoorah. I would have rather have seen old school Blackhawk stories and had this one set in the past instead of set modern day.
See, and I disagree. I actually really like the modern day setting of it, because I'm into modern day tech and gadgets. And one of the things that I've really loved about this series is how well they've pushed the envelope with believability. Like, they've had some cool planes and gadgets and computers, and even their instrument panel, like on the first page where, the two of them are flying, you see this kind of virtual instrument panel that they're working with there. I like that kind of stuff. I'm into this tech culture that they came in, this culture that they came across that kind of came up as a happy accident with that mother creature that they're dealing with. I love that that's kind of their enemy that they're dealing with now, but it's all with this modern threat of the smaller the tech gets, with how interconnected our whole world is. We're dealing with an internet society where through portable devices, we are constantly connected everywhere we go. And the old argument comes up, are we too connected? Do people have too much access to us, to our information, things like that? Well, this plays off of that happy threat. And it's one of the things where, yeah, it's got that G.I. Joe vibe for me, but it's also doing things that are so different because of that. It's really playing off of modern-day tech. Now, I would love, like you mentioned, I'd love to see a classic Blackhawks story, just like I'd like to see a classic war book as well. But I do like the fact that this and Men of War have taken place in more of a modern setting, because I think there's room to play with real people messing around with modern tech and futuristic style tech with experiments, and saying, at what point in time are we getting too reliant on our technology? The nanotech issue is really a kind of a cool one that's addressed in this, because it does kind of play off the fact that, look what happens now that one of our own have been infected with this. And is she still the same person? Can we still trust her to do her job? I love that. And that she was afraid to reveal it because of that.
Oh, yeah. And again, it's some of the interactions, the human interactions we're getting from this, there's some good stuff going on. I like the fact in the beginning of this issue we got Canada and I'm drawing a blank on the other dude. When
Wildman.
Yeah, Wild. Thank you. When they have that moment when he's kind of like, hey, we've been having, when he's kind of telling Canada about the relationship he's been having in secret, and Canada's like, hold on, right? You're having this moment with me because you think we may be dying when we step out there. I don't want to have that moment. We're not dead yet. And I like the fact that he stopped that bonding, that final moments of, hey, before we go, I just got to let you know, pal, you're the best. Like, I like the fact that he stopped and said, we're not out of the woods yet. This ain't over. And that, for me, was a really cool interaction, a really cool human moment. And really, that was a fun writing bit where we see this, because we see it throughout this issue. We've seen these kind of moments, throughout previous issues, that it's something I do enjoy about this book. So it's something I do, there is some really good stuff going on here.
Mentally, I love that Canada won't let him call it a day.
Yeah.
Because he needs Wildman in the position of, we're getting out of this, and you need to be focused on that. I'm focused on that. Dying is not an option here. and I'm not accepting that. We start exchanging these type of things. It puts that doubt in your mind on whether or not you're going to survive. I can't deal with that right now. That's not where my head needs to be. Canada's a professional here, and I love what he's doing. That's one of those things where in a squad-based situation like this, I dig that because I'm like, that to me is the difference between life and death. It's that attitude, that mentality of we aren't accepting this. This isn't the way it's going to be. I love that. That's a kick-butt action kind of thing. I've been into action movies a lot lately. Especially I've referred to stuff like Expendables. I've watched that movie over and over again. I'm kind of into the whole classic action genre. So that's why this is, to me, this is what I'm looking for in this book, is for a classic action sequence. I love the dog bit. Really funny. Protect, bad, go, bad. I love these. We got these talking dogs because of the technology, but that they're reacting like you would expect dogs to react. So their sense of language is very, very limited to words that they've heard from humans that they associate with certain situations. So we're not getting full-blown sentences. They're very broken, very limited. Phrases is even a strong term for what they're doing here. And
it's emotional expression.
Yes.
It's that gutturary reaction, and I like the fact that when the one gets smacked up against the wall, he goes, "Yike!"
I like the bad men thing, and just how they react to the whole thing. I love the sequence where the kick to the head. Canada's looking at one quick shot is what I need right here. I cannot afford to get into this situation where we've got this dog that's running crazy, because you know how those animals are when they're going that fast. They're fast. Lots of muscles, their heads bashing around wildly. They've got front, we know claws on a dog and that type of thing. They're not like claws like you would normally expect from like with like talons and that type of thing, or even like a cat-like creature. But I've had dogs, and my big dogs like this, their nails, when they scratch on you, hurt. They'll draw blood and that type of thing, especially if they're going at you wildly like these two. They're rabid at this point, coming at them in that standpoint. I love that the way that he used the dog's momentum against him with that kick, with that yipe, and then that he had to help Wildman, because it shows that these guys all have different roles on the team with their presence there. And we get to see that moment where, he's like, I'm the pilot. This is your moment when they're up at the computers. This is your department. That's why he needed his head in the game. Canada's working through a plan. This is where this book's been engaging me. It's been the smarts of the characters. It's been that you see that each character has a defined role. There's nothing cookie cutter about each member of the team. I really like the fact that this looks like a team where everybody has a purpose. They have strengths. They also have weaknesses. But when you got a guy like Canada who knows, I'm here with Wildman. I know what my skill set is. I know what his skill set is. We are going to use the best of both of us to get out of this. I like that kind of stuff. I'm very into that. And that's great character development and great story development. And that's where this series has been grabbing me, because it's been a great action sequences, but there's also some great meaningful character development in this. And it's unique. And I'm into the whole tech thing. I mean, I got to admit, that's one of the draws for this whole thing, too. Their use of tech, their use of the ire or Airy or whatever. Airy, I think it's Airy is how they pronounce that. I forget whatever their base is. I looked it up at one point in time, and I've totally forgotten what that part is. But that was something. Did you expect Lady Blackhawk to be Zinda in this?
Yeah, that's one of the things I was thinking, that this was going to be her, and it's not her. So, this is a good exploration of a team dynamic. This is a great team dynamic book, and it's funny, on paper, I should be going psycho over this book. And when I just logically look at it, I should be going, it has good team dynamics, individuality, individual strengths and weaknesses of the teams. They're explaining it, exploring it. I should be just so much more passionate about it. But there's just something I can't explain why.
Wow.
I'm not like that. I'm not as latched onto it as you are.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying that this book's like in my top 5, but it's a good book. Let me put it this way. It's a good book that I'm sad it's being canceled because I'm enjoying it. Like, this isn't a book that I'm like, it's kind of like a miniseries. There's certain books that are canceling. I'm like, well, okay, at least it's wrapping up like a miniseries, and I'm happy with it there. This is one, I want to see more adventures of this team. I want to see where they're going with it. So this is one, when it was canceled, I was bummed. like that this one was being canceled. This was on that list for me. And I think everybody's probably got different books off of that list that they were bummed about, but this one bummed me. I actually like that this isn't Zinda. That's the reason why originally when they said Lady Blackhawk, I was expecting it to be Zinda. And let me clarify that. I'm glad it's not Zinda because this character clearly is not Zinda. and I like her. I like this character, this Lady Blackhawk. But if you're not going to have her be Zinda and you're doing a new character, then fine, name her Lady Blackhawk and do this route with it. She fits in the role that she's got here for this team, and I'm digging it on that end.
With their interactions with Mother and the Mother computer and just everything with that. That was something, to be honest, that kind of threw me for a loop. Just when they first got her into it and you started seeing, she's a character that the first the couple issues ago when they first introduced her, I was like, what? But as this is going on, as this is she's playing out, she's definitely a character that I'm getting stronger behind, and I'm glad to see she's not going she's the apparent one death wasn't her death. She's able to improvise, adapt, and overcome. And I want to see that's the character I want to see more of and where it's going with her.
Agreed. Well, one of the things that I like about this, it makes sense that you would need a Blackhawks team. Because to me, if you're going to do a book like this, it's got to have, in a world of superheroes, what's the purpose of this team? Why is it needed? Why is it around? Well, you've got this type of covert tech that's underground. And look at the way that Mother's operating. It would make sense that the Justice League that's dealing with Darkseid type issues would not have time to deal with this. They wouldn't know that this was happening. This would be under their radar. So for the fact that this squad, this team has discovered this, it shows that there's a purpose for having this type of group put together.
Yeah.
I think that's really important when you do stories like this, because you don't want to, when it's a book that's set in the DC universe, be asking yourself, okay, why would this team be around? Like, why would they exist? I'm not asking that in this book. This Mother character is a great example of that. I would love to see where this creative team, what else they were going to do, enemy-wise, besides this Mother character. I love that she's giving them a choice to, like, smother themselves, eject themselves out into space, or to be kind of absorbed for really their knowledge. It's really like, in many ways, she's an information parasite.
She's Borg. There's a very definite Borg attachment and vibe and feeling that I get from her. And it's, again, I'm not saying they're ripping off the Borg with this, but it's that same style, that same type, and I like that. Those were Star Trek villains that I really liked, and I liked the concept behind them. So it's kind of neat, and again, it's funny because she's like, we can either kill, you can either die through the crash. You could pop the air hatch, and you can all just suck suck all the air out, and you'll die that way. Or you can slowly, gradually freeze to death. Or you can step into these nanites, let the nanites completely destroy you, but we'll take most of your personality. So they'll still be you'll kind of still be alive, still kind of in existence within us. That was a great villain moment.
Plus, giving them the choice, whereas the Borg just assimilates you. It's not really, you're not given the option. This is you're being given that choice. And I like those distinctions, that it's something a little bit different. But I loved Wildman's reaction. At first, I was like, is this dude cracking up or what? I felt that way too. But I love this goes back to what Canada did in the beginning. This is why Canada was trying to keep him alert and keeping him focused. Look for options. Look for opportunities. Let's find that split-second thing that could possibly save our lives, could give us a chance here. And who's the one that does it? Wildman. He discovers what this place is. We've got an opportunity to take her out. And in that sequence to say, we might still die here, but at least we're taking her with us. That mentality, I love that kind of stuff. That's a heroic moment where you're like, to me, it's how are you going to go out at the end? I'm going out fighting,
I'm going down swinging. If I'm going to go down, and I like that. And I loved his cover for that when he has that moment. And she's like, what are you, laughing? He's like, no, it's just an inappropriate emotional response given the stress of the situation, which could very easily be a logical explanation for that laughter. We've all had moments when you laugh or you cry or you do something that is inappropriate for the area, but it is that emotional reaction that you can't control. And I loved seeing how That was some great improvisation on his part and great cover-up for the fact that, hey, I got you, lady.
I liked the debate between Canada and Wildman there. Where Canada's wait, hang on, fella. This is a new culture. And granted, given, the misguided nature and everything of it, but think of what the technology there could do for the world. Is this the way we want to handle this? And that is an interesting debate because there is a lot of, technology there that could potentially be very positive for the world. I liked that. I actually totally agree with what Wildman did.
Yeah.
Because I'm a big believer that, in that case, using that technology can create a bigger problem. Look at what it's already done. So now you're going to say, let's mass market this stuff further than it already is. Wildman made the right choice. But I think the debate in the heat of the moment was a natural one. I agree with Canada for bringing it to the table. That was something I really dug, was that I was behind the two having debates. I was behind where all this was going. Very cool book in that end, because that's very smart when a book makes me think that way.
Oh, definite. And I'm in the same page as you are, where I think Wildman did the right thing. Because, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And if no matter what kind of good stuff they could come out of it, there would always be the risk of something equally worse. And just... This is definitely not someone you can negotiate with, and they wouldn't be able to bargain. They wouldn't be able to hold the fact that they could destroy her and the city over her head. That's not going to do any good because we see her improvise it around it. She's like, even when they fire down on her, she's like, if you think you've won, you ridiculously arrogant, and boom, they blow up. But she's not worried about it. She knows she's got the backup. She knows she has her way out, and we see that later on when she goes into the other Blackhawks. So we're like, okay, she's not gone yet. She's not done, and
they still hurt her though.
Oh, they definitely hurt her. And well, they probably hurt her, but I think they did just more of angered her.
And they survived, Jim. What? They hurt her and survived.
Yeah,
well, they did more than anger her because in destroying that. That's still a major blow to her. I agree with you that they thought they were ending her, and she's proven that she's a survivor and that she's going to cause havoc for them.
Yeah.
But at this point, they've stopped some of her major plans here, at least for now. She has to rebuild.
They postponed them. They definitely slowed her down. They've postponed what she's going to do and how she's going to do it. But
they want to wait.
They've opened another door to her.
They want to No, that door was there. They won a battle. They didn't win the war. There's a distinction. They did win a battle there. I think you're not giving them enough credit for what they did. I agree with you that she found an opportunity to escape, and that opened up a door for her to do some harm to them and possibly rebuild herself if they don't finish her now. But she was clearly in a much superior position than she is in the moment being trapped in Nikki's head.
Yeah.
I love, actually, see, this is to me where the book gets interesting, because you can debate this kind of stuff. I think this is an interesting book. I love the technology of the rods, because it makes sense, like, hey, if we make this kinetic harpoon, you don't need to make missiles anymore. Yeah. You can fire pretty much anything out of here. You can fire recycled cans out of this thing, and with enough speed, it'll cause the kind of damage that you need for that type of thing. Interesting use of, the typical destructive technology that we're capable of.
Oh, definitely. And again, that's a nice improvisation, and just, it's the low-tech solution for a high tech problem. And I laughed when he said, no matter how advanced your computer is, you bash it with a rock, you're still going to break it. And it's that same type of basic technology where it's not a missile, it's not an energy weapon, it's these simple tungsten carbon rods that are flying down at superhuman speeds that are doing all this massive destruction. That was something I really did like about it. I really love the fact that within this advanced technology, this advanced intelligence, it's a very basic and simple tool that they use, so differently and effectively.
One of the things I really like in this book is attention to small details in action sequences. Their escape, when she's coming in and flying. I love the attention to detail that, first of all, how are they going to do all this at 500 miles per hour? That's one thing. She's got to stall at that moment.
Yeah.
I love the attention of Canada saying, it's not only that 500 miles an hour nonsense, it's, you got to understand, the hard part is going to be holding our breath and keeping our eyes closed at the same time. Because they don't have the containment suits. I love that stuff. I thought it was just a great attention to detail, little things that we don't normally think about that they're going to have to do because of their location at that time and how it was a narrow escape. I just thought it was a really cool action sequence. I thought it was a great event. This is one of those things that this, to me, could be a really cool animated series. You know, each issue to me is read as a half-an-hour animated cartoon. And I really like that, with high action, good stories. I like those little attention to details, narrow escapes. I almost felt like there was action music playing in the background when I was reading this book. It's a good book. It kind of fits that middle ground for me. These are new characters to me, so I'm getting to know them as they're going along. But like before, a great example was when you were asking who the character was, Wildman. Yeah. I didn't have to look for that. That came right off the top of my head. That's a sign that I'm really getting attached to these characters, that I know their names because I'm into the book. And he's been a great delivery. I agree with you. I love how Mother escaped.
Yeah.
Her nanotech has worked against her, which means this is even going to bring more into question, like what her role is going to be on the team and how they're going to react to her with having that nanotech in there. Or is this going to be a way for her to get that out of her? I don't think so. I think she's going to be stuck with that because it's a virus type of thing. But, you know, this is going to make her, I think this is going to make her question herself even more. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. It's a book, for me, and we don't have to be in the same place on it. Actually, it's sometimes interesting to talk about books we're in different places on. This one, for me, is one of those books, because we've talked about a lot of these books where you've jumped on them, like, right from the get-go, and some of them, they've taken me a few issues. This was one of them where, right out of the starting gate, I was interested in reading issue number 1. I think it was Lady Blackhawk from Birds of Prey that got me interested in reading issue number 1. I was pleasantly surprised with how different this was than what I was expecting and how much I enjoyed that. And it is the tech end. I really do think I'm a techie. I like that kind of stuff. I like action films. This is, I think for anybody who's into the action film genre, you'll like this book. It fits that place. It's like, the old Arnold Schwarzenegger action flicks, but with a modern flair, cool gadgets and gizmos. I was really into that. I build my own computers. So this kind of stuff like is in my wheelhouse of geeky, kind of good action fun. The G.I. Joe reference I think is a pretty good one. It's really good G.I. Joe set in the DC universe. And I like it set in the DCU. Because it offers some opportunity for how are these characters going to interact with metas and superheroes and supervillains when they encounter them. I think there's room for that. It's kind of cool. It's different. I mean, unfortunately, this book's going to be canceled, but it's worth reading. And the cool part is when you get into hardcover, you're going to be able to get the whole thing. So if you haven't picked up this book, it's worth a try.
Spinning with great speed, the Flash creates a protective vacuum around himself.
And our next book will be The Fury of the Firestorm.
I love this. You were practicing the creative team, and you're adding all kinds of... It's The Fury of Firestorm, The Nuclear Man, issue number 5.
Well, last issue I had Agent of Frankenstein, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. This time I can't say Firestorm. The co-plotters are Ethan Van Sciver and Gail Simone. Writer Gail Simone. Pencils by Yildire Sinar. Inks by Norm Rapmund. Colors Steve Buccellato. With letterer Travis Lanham. Covers by Van Sciver and Hi-Fi. Assistant editor Ricky Purden. Editor Rachel Gluckstern. And Firestorm was created by Jerry Conway and Al Milgrom.
Just apologize now.
Sorry.
You know what? It's fun. It's one of the things we name the creative teams on this show for the purpose of, we really love these books, and it's really important to note that we love these books because of the work that's produced by these creative teams. I am terrible with names on this show. I know there's ones that I'm horribly butchering. I know there's ones that I've butchered since my childhood where I thought I knew the pronunciation of the name. Then you hear them at a convention, you're like, oh my gosh, how wrong could I have been? But then, especially for ones from my childhood, I still find myself slipping into how I was pronouncing it because I can't let that go. So it's really funny when we have these discussions because the intention is always really to honor, the creative teams that produce these books, because I do think that that's really it's important to remember with a comic that because I follow creative teams when a writer or an artist leaves a book and I'm really enjoying their material, I tend to follow it because they've been delivering, especially with an art team. I like when art teams are able to stay together. I know it sometimes doesn't work out that way where inkers and colorists can travel with the people that they've worked with, but I've found that my favorite books are the ones when it's writer, artist, inker, colorist, letterer, everybody. They're all on full thrusters. They understand the theme and tone and style of the book. That's one of the reasons why we do this, because I'm a big fan of teams of creators. This one, it's very interesting. I have been a huge Firestorm fan since my childhood. Loved Firestorm. I will admit I haven't read every single issue of Firestorm, but I've read a lot of Firestorm. Back when Ronnie Raymond was Firestorm, and actually other iterations afterwards where Ronnie wasn't necessarily the guy, running the show. But then we've got Jason Rusch who came in, and I read every issue of that run. Really, really loved that character. This is a reboot of these characters, so we're getting to see them right from the beginning. And I found this has been pretty consistent with the reboots, where I have a strong relationship with those characters. It's taken me a few issues to open my mind to new direction for them, and then to really see where the creators are going with it and get excited. This is a book, I got to be honest with you, at issue 5, this has been my favorite issue of this title. I've really gotten to the point where I'm seeing the Ronnie and Jason that I like, and I've always liked. But I'm also liking the changes in their relationship because we're getting to see the two of them interacting and the differences, the strong differences that have been established between the two, with Jason having more of this, this science background to him and coming into that, but then Ronnie being the quarterback. And both of them dropping this hatred they've had for each other. Or I don't know if hatred is, just maybe prejudice that they had against each other because they've made assumptions on who each of them are without really getting to know each other. But now circumstances have forced them to see the real person behind that outward facade that they think that they know the other person from. I've really grown to like this book and both of these characters because of that. There's segments in this issue in particular where, Ronnie will sit there and he lets Jason be the quarterback.
Yes.
I ate that segment up because I'm like,
oh, God, yeah.
I was just talking this week to my phys ed teacher in front of my students, and one of the things I like that he's doing, I think nowadays for kids, it's really important for them to understand as a life skill. Teamwork, taking turns, respecting others, sportsmanship. Those are things that apply to classroom activities where we're working with partners in small groups, but they also apply to life working at any business or any place of employment. You have to learn how to bend and compromise and things like that. That's a survival skill. You also have to learn when to be assertive, but you've got to pick and choose those battles. And that's something that sports and phys ed teach you. So we're seeing, it was, for me, I just deeply connected with the way Ronnie was reacting in that sequence. I'm like, he is being the leader at that point where he's sitting there and saying to himself, hey, I'm not the best guy to be the quarterback in this situation here. He is. And understanding how teamwork works, I need to drop my ego. I need to follow this guy. I need to give him. So in many ways, Ronnie was taking a leadership role by stepping back and giving him the ball. Yep. And he was playing a quarterback while letting him be the quarterback of that, while letting Jason be the quarterback. I loved that because I was eating that up. I'm like, that's I was just talking about this week. I'm like, how cool is that? I'm liking these characters a lot. Where are you at on this book? I don't know if you're in the same spot.
We're in the same spot, and it's funny because with that whole where Ronnie just said, "Hey, you're the quarterback on it." I was looked at it and I took it another step. It was like it was an option play. Where you have that pitch out option where the quarterback's got to pass it off, give it to the halfback as they're going, and that's the one who's got the ball. Now they're running with it. The quarterback has to take the play off of the other team. It's a team dynamic. It's, and it's funny because when they first started off, there was this hatred towards the two of them. And I really associated with, with Jason on this because, I could see where he was coming, what he was thinking. He's looking at Ronnie, seeing him as just this dumb jock who, is really just has all this potential, all this possible, he has scholarship opportunities, all these opportunities being given to him, and he's just going to, throw it away and make nothing out of it. Well, I could completely see along with him and kind of get the groove and understand where he's going with it. So I was kind of associating with him. And then as things started going through, I'm like, yeah, I see everything. Each one of them has multiple sided. Each one of them has a different, part that they're now letting in and letting us see. And it's been really growth of hero, growth of character, but also growth of the villain base in this. We're really, because I never knew what would be a Firestorm villain. What would they do? Okay, yeah, I was figuring, okay, yeah, they'll deal with regular villains. No, they're dealing with other Firestorms. They're dealing with others with similar powers to theirs who either, whether it's not a completely clean power or it's not, there's little tweaks and little twists to it. Plus, then they got this government agency that's manipulating them. I love seeing just these multiple factions of the villains playing, and it's a great villain base, a cool human base, a great hero base. This is a really solid story that's hitting on all those elements of a comic that I like.
One of the things I like about the other Firestorms, it makes sense that when this was leaked out, and you'd find out that there's people who are able to tap into this and to be able to harness this type of power, that you would find people who would try to improve it, people who would try to make soldiers out of people for this. There's always that military aspect of it, but always people that would be there for their own potential power grab using this. And I love the situations here where you don't know who to trust. What people are saying at face value, they might have their own agenda that they're hiding behind the scenes. So you're not quite sure who to trust. What's really been important for me with these issues, and I think what hurt it at first for me, I liked this book initially from issues 1 through 4. I've enjoyed that. But we came off of post-Blackest Night. You had this negativity between Ronnie and Jason over the death of Jason's girlfriend. So you had them fighting there. We had just seen them kind of come together. Now we've got them relaunched into turmoil. And for me, I was looking forward to seeing the Firestorm superhero, right out of the starting gate, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, let me clarify. This is a really good story. And by issue 5, I'm so glad that they did what they did in the storytelling. So it was a good move. And that's why by now I'm glad I stuck with it for an arc and really got into it, because what I'm finding is the pacing and how everything delivered right now, that's where those quarterback moments that we were just talking about, why do they matter? Because of the journey these two characters went on. And I felt like now I really know the two of them, both their strengths, but then also their inner weaknesses. And also the facade. Everybody puts on a little bit of a facade. It's part of being a human, to kind of deal with some of your weaknesses, so that way people don't discover them.
Yep.
These guys are doing that. This has been a really good book for that. It is something, though, my journey with this book is, it's been a good book as it's gone along. Issue 5 has made this a great book for me. And it really is because of that journey. And I think going back and reading the previous issues, knowing where I'm at now with it, it's put those issues in a very different place for me as well. And I'm really glad I went on the journey. These are two characters who've been important to me, so I'm glad that I feel this way now. And I think it is really, I've had trouble because of past reading. I was in a different place at the start of this. I think my expectations were different at the start of this. And I walked in thinking one thing, and I needed to spend some time enjoying the journey to get past that. And that's where I was at. But this has really turned into a great book with issue 5. But it was an interesting journey getting there.
Something that got me, and it was funny, and I'm kicking myself because I didn't notice it until the second read through, but the opening cover. When I first looked at it, I didn't notice that the female villain with the two faces has each of the two Firestorms on a leash. And I never noticed that until after I'd gone through. When I went to do my reread, I was like, oh my God, there's a leash there. And it was just like, it was one of those things that was a smack in the head. I'm like, I should have seen that. And, especially given what happens in the issue, it's a great, prediction, a great, foreshadowing of what's to come. But it was also a neat little it's a neat thing. It was something that just really caught my attention, and it was, I was like, dang, that's cool.
It's a good use of family, too, and supporting cast, to, and also this need to, these guys are hunted right now. So you don't have a normal life until your name's cleared and stuff like that. So I love that this journey really plays off of real fears that people would have in this situation. Plus, I like that this issue showed, and we'll gloss over some of these things when we get to them, that these guys are super powerful. They can turn things into whatever they can imagine, and I don't think these guys fully understand, and we don't fully understand their capabilities yet. But I love that there's a limitation. Jason touches on it when he turns the weapons into balloons. That was the first thing he could think of. When they were making like a crack balloons, and he's going back, hey, it's the first thing I could think of.
Hey.
That stuff I like. I really gravitate towards that type of thing because there's a reality to it. It shows us a limitation to the powers. They've got this amazing, incredible powers. Plus, there's still the mystery of Fury. We're seeing Fury haunting Jason in his dreams, and we don't know quite what Fury is yet. It's a fusing of the two of them, but what is that? Because that's a sentient entity, right?
That's definitely it's something else beyond what they are. And I love the fact that, Fury was in the dreams, haunting him, kind of like, in a way, antagonizing him to recognize, hey, you're being set up. This is not a good thing for you. Get up, get out, wake up. And it wasn't even just a wake up physical, but wake up mentally. Realize what's going on. So Fury is somewhere, inside probably each of them, a little bit and a little piece in each of them, and it's able to hit during the dreaming, that subconscious stuff. So there's definitely the story of Fury isn't over. There's still more of that.
See, part of me kept wondering if Fury on some level was Professor Stein, and was like somehow the I don't know, like the personality elements of Professor Stein that he never let out. I don't know.
There definitely could be parts of Professor Stein make up Fury, or it could be his essence, but it's because of the energy locked up, it's not exactly him. He's been changed, he's been manipulated, and he's not in complete control because there's just this massive unknown energy that they're dealing with, and that energy fused with Stein and changed how Stein looks at things, or Stein's trying to fight his way out of it. Stein could definitely be connected with Fury.
Now, what I'm interested in with Siberia, we see this opening sequence, which was really great. And I so knew that the one professor had to be somebody who was in touch with the Firestorm powers. I saw that coming. But I had so many questions about that rogue Firestorm. Because here's my question. Could that have been a prisoner that he did that to?
I don't think there's a could be. I think that's 100% guaranteed he did that to that person.
Which is the thing that I love about this. This was a great opportunity for him to set up a scenario that plays into his political maneuver.
Oh, definitely. And you know what? That's an effective maneuver right there. And I loved how every time we're seeing these people do the manipulation, they're personalizing the manipulation.
Yeah.
The Russian, they're sitting there, it's about budget, it's about finances. It's, hey, we're not going to throw money blindly at you anymore. We have a stockpile of nukes, we're protected, we're safe. He goes, oh, really? You think you're really safe? How will your nukes deal with, boom, this? I love that play out. Again, it's showing a very intelligent villain, for them to eventually deal with. And it makes me wonder if the other rogue Firestorm down the line is also, a creation from the Russian, from this Russian general, from this, professor, this Russian Firestorm. If he didn't create that one as well, just to continue adding more chaos, because the Firestorm chaos out there will benefit him, well, locally as well as internationally.
Right. And he also might want some of those things that he's having done to cause chaos aside from the political agenda in areas where he wants to access something. I mean, this guy's got big plans. I don't know, it's a good villain to have introduced. Was that Pazar? I'm guessing that's Firestorm in Russian.
That was my guess as well.
Yeah, I didn't look. But I don't know, I liked that there was a different way, a different language way to connect to it, because it would have to be personal to him.
Well, and it may even be not even just a language thing. It could be just a personal connection. We got, you think about it, Johnny Storm does the flame on. Maybe, Jason and Ronnie say Firestorm, but maybe the other person's is activate or go time, or it's, gut check time. There may be a different, turn on switch depending on the person.
Now, here's my question. Is it set in stone that Zither's bad or totally bad? Director Zither, that girl?
I'm pretty thinking it's pretty set in stone she's bad. because she was the one who was part of the team that tried to kill them.
Yeah, that's true too.
Yeah, I'm thinking that usually that's a very definite definition of evil when you go in and you kill a gym coach and then you say, no, it wasn't us, it was this rogue group who did it. So I'm pretty leaning on that she's a bad guy. She's a villain.
I guess I'm wondering what their motivation is. I guess to control the power.
Oh yeah. You think about it, they're giving this opportunity to them, saying, see, look at all this wonderful stuff we're doing. I loved her speech that she gave when she was in the house, saying, think about it, if every country had a soldier like you, our soldiers would be poets and artists and farmers. We would plant trees where the tanks are, giving this whole peace story and how everything would be great and it would be a utopia, and all we just need is just a little bit of help from you and we'll work with you. And the whole time she's setting them up to fail. She wants that ending that we get. She wants something negative because that, in a way, would be a great way to kind of manipulate and control, Jason and Ronnie. Having that failure thrown, have that, that is, it's a whole control piece. You see her manipulate the father, see her manipulate the mother. There's a lot of stuff going on here, and I think this is just again, beautifully layered villain, just laying one piece on top of another. It's all part of the game plan.
Now, is she the one? Are you taking her to be the one with the Z on her face in the first issue?
Yes.
Or the one behind the scenes watching all of this unfold?
I thought she was the one with the Z.
Okay. I don't know. I guess I wasn't 100% sure on that, but I can see your point. Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting. I'm curious to see, because if that is her, I agree with you. She's definitely bad news.
Yeah, we got a world-class villain here. And there may even be another level beyond this. You think about it, she's the director, but even the director reports to somebody. So there is a whole nother level of villainy that will eventually get played out and will get exposed and we'll see and they'll have to deal with. So even if they come back firing guns on her, there's still another level to go. You're never really going to get the top Mr. Big or Mrs. Big. You got something out there. There will be that X factor out there.
Well, and there's a middle ground too of people along the way who will work for different government agencies and companies and things like that are associated with trying to gain control of these guys who have their own agendas. Mm-hmm. That are sleeper not sleeper agents, not the right word, but I mean they're deliberately working where they are to gain their own advantage. I don't know. It's kind of a cool thing about all this. Now, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, it's funny because you're talking about just the different level. We're talking different levels with the dad, with Ronnie's dad. That for me was Jason's dad. With his dad, that for me was just a great, sign of he's a man of integrity. He is a man of just person, but they gave him a perfect environment. They really just everything one on top of another. One gave him this great job, gave him this great home, the car for the son. He could feel like a man again. He could feel like, yes, so look at me. I'm doing this wonderful stuff for my son. I'm doing this wonderful stuff for my family. I'm protecting my kid. I'm providing for him. They just really on top of it. In one hand, when I was reading it initially, I was like, oh man, I can't believe they got to him. But you read what they gave him, and it made perfect sense. Even knowing what I know about these people, part of me would have been tempted to take the job. And they gave this father all the answers, saying, no, it wasn't us. It was a rogue agency. Now, my first reaction is because I'm a pessimist. I'm like, there's no way it was a rogue agency. We know it was really them. But if I was in his shoes, I'd start looking the other way. I think they could convince me of it just because they were giving me so much that I wanted, so much. They really tapped into the human psyche, the human and it wasn't just greed. It was, look at all this great stuff we're doing for you, for your family. Look at the pride your kid will have in you again. They really went after him, and that was beautiful play.
Dad's too calm. Like, that's the one thing I remember from this. I'm like, boy, he's really calm for the fact that his son's hair's on fire, and that made me suspect of the whole thing. Like, what did they do to Dad? That was what I was thinking. That's not necessarily what happened. There's a part of me that's convinced that maybe it's just Dad's had time to get used to the situation. They explained to Dad what's going on with Jason, so Dad's a little more comfortable with it. But I just felt like he was really overly calm in this whole situation for what for the way that Jason knows him as a fighter. Now, it could be that Dad hasn't, like you said, the cloud has kind of kept him from seeing the truth, and we'll get to see Dad man up when the time comes. I'm looking forward to that, though. Like, what happens when Dad realizes what's going on here, if something's going on there? The intrigue, that's what I liked about this issue. I think this issue really started putting an intrigue in place, started putting a status quo in place that is something that I'm really enjoying following. And it wouldn't mean anything if we hadn't had what came before, but this is the one where it kind of all came together for me, where I wasn't, like, feeling things before. I'm starting to feel it now big time. This is a great issue. Really important one for me.
Well, and before this, I was thinking this whole series, for at least a year plus, would be a lot of scrambling, a lot of running with them being chased down and, stick and move, going from spot to spot to spot. That's how I was thinking this was going to go. But for them to completely kind of twist this and shift it and give them a base of operation, just the way they went with this, I didn't see that coming. In the end of last issue, when Ronnie was the first one to say, "Hey, give these guys, Jason, give these guys a try," I didn't see this go this way. I didn't see them actually play the cards this way. And so when we start seeing this, I was like, "Oh, that's kind of cool." I like the fact that, again, it's a villain team that isn't playing the quote-unquote traditional villain where they're like, "We'll beat you into submission." No, they're going the better route. There's another route to get to what you want, and we're seeing them play it out. And I love, that's the thing that really got me with this villain. I always talk about how Luthor's my favorite villain because how he approaches things, because how he deals with it. Right here, we're seeing this villain team look at it a little differently. I like that.
It's too perfect, though.
Yeah.
That's where it gets creepy. It's like Stepford Wives perfect.
Yes.
It is. It's like, that's the part of it where I'm like when Ronnie shows up and they're throwing the football outside, I'm like, guys, this is really too perfect. It's a little too creepy. Like, life needs a little dirt in it. You need those little elements. It should feel a little gritty. It should feel a little lived in. You know what I mean? This is like too clean. It's like almost like they're in a bottle, like the bottled city of Kandor. Like we're totally hidden away from dust and everything that like normal people would be in. I don't know. That was something that really stood out. That's always a warning sign for me that like it's going to turn at some point.
Yeah.
I like this bit where the two of them firestorm up after the football bit that we were talking about earlier, and Jason's laughing, goes, "Heh," and Ronnie's like, "What? Nothing, just flying, right?"
Yeah.
I love that kind of stuff because I think that's really important in superhero comics. Is at some point in time to hit that point, and these guys haven't had a chance for this with the scramble you've been talking about, and this is something too where this issue really hit me. I'm like, all right. Now I'm starting to see what I'm looking for. Because to me, one of the things I grew up with and what made Firestorm an interesting character for me, Firestorm always was cool. Because at the time when Firestorm came out, he was a very different looking character. And his costume looked cool. It was something unique. He didn't look like any of the other heroes. It had like a flash and a flare to it. It was something. I mean, I've read this character since I was a little kid. And to see this guy now put out this way and see him thinking it's cool, both of them, and bonding over that factor to it was something that I really liked. And Jason's inner dialogue, this better be on the level because maybe I believe it the worst of all times. We're the worst at all times. I think that skepticism is something that you should have in a situation like this. And I really like that. There was something about this bit and the way it played out. Now, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, one of the other things that I liked really well was that initial fight sequence with the security thing. We see, not only, it's not just about transformation, because he transforms the guns into brooms, but he doesn't then, continue blasting. He goes back old school, some boxing that he was trained. His father taught him how to fight with his fists, and you see that cool, just the way the art laid it out. You got boom, 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 just that action sequence, a nice fighting, and it was something that you didn't expect from this character because he's always the brain, he's always the egghead. He's not the physical fighter. Well, guess what? he can throw down. And I thought that was a cool moment, then leading into the tossing the football back and forth, because, when he throws, he's like, hey, nice spiral. He's got that, there is more to him than just books. And I like seeing that play out. And it's an understanding between these two that they are very similar. They're more alike than they realize. And that commonality with the flying, when they're like, yeah, it's like they're kind of seeing it now themselves. There is that connection. That was something that I really love seeing in this issue as compared to the past issues where you see them butting heads and you see them, just getting at each other. This is, the coming together issue, and makes me wonder where the future's going to go. Because, when we get into this fight sequence with this rogue, Firestorm from, Karak, it's, things change right there, and you can see this is a bad situation coming down. How's this going to affect this newly bonded team?
Well, and with the new bond, how do they turn into fury? Because remember, before it was their anger at each other that generated that. So if they need to call on fury, how do they do that? I'm looking forward to seeing how that works, too. Because I like that development.
Yeah, and I was laughing at the rock concert where everybody thought that guy was part of the show, so they weren't afraid. And I'm like, oh, this is cool. I wonder how they're doing. You can just imagine they're thinking, oh yeah, technical, the special effects, and what's with the flaming guy with the flaming head? I don't know. Maybe it's a new song. I could just imagine the audience having chats like that.
The artist is really great. It's a good creative team, because I like this art a lot on Legion of Superheroes, but I like that the style's been changed up a bit for this book. It really matches the style of this title, especially with the fire effects and things like that. Yeah. You want to see a lot of power. These are very powerful characters. And, especially with the fact that they're just learning their powers, I'm glad that you're seeing a lot. See, to me, one of the things I always like about the Green Lantern books, visual effects. This book has a lot of really cool visual effects that are unique to this character. It doesn't look like it would look in another book. I love the turning of things into snakes to capture the to capture the villains. Those little behind the scenes stuff when Ronnie's facing our Firestorm guy. I like that there's more than one thing going on. Jason's doing one thing, Ronnie's doing another thing, but we get to see different perspectives where you'll see Jason in the foreground, Ronnie in the background, Ronnie in the foreground, Jason in the background. That type of stuff it's really a nice little twist. It adds like a buddy cop team book dynamic to this, which is, I think, really important. I think the two characters will bring a lot to this title. It is funny how this is a book where, like, this suicide bombing here that's going on between the two, where they realize it too late. Now they're going to be left to deal with what could we have done differently, because they're left with nothing but death surrounding them.
Oh yeah, and it was I feel bad for tragedy of for all the loss of lives, but that was a really cool sequence. And even leading into it, it was awesome because initially, Ronnie tackles him, drives him out of the stadium, and he's like, okay, people in the stadium are safe. Hero objective number 1 achieved. And I was laughing because I'm like, we always say how, top priority of the hero always has to be, protection of the innocents. And we love seeing when the heroes do that little extra stuff to keep the people safe. So I was so glad to see that. But he's not an experienced hero. He wasn't able to keep the bad guy out of the stadium. Yeah, you get him out of the stadium, but you got to keep him out of it. And this guy was, he's a suicide bomber. He's going to go back to where all the people were. He needs, to have massive death, massive destruction. And I loved seeing that because, again, that was another one I didn't see coming. I didn't see this bad guy, self-detonating on purpose. I was thinking as the fight was going to happen that one of them would mess up and would accidentally detonate him. Because if you think about the beginning pages with the Russian guy, he really contained that blast, and he contained the energy of the fake Firestorm, or the fake Firestorm. How he contained that energy and how he had to do it. These two don't know their powers. I was thinking of that, but the fact that it's not even something they did. It's the guy, it was a suicide bomber, and they didn't know either how to contain it or they froze at the moment because these are kids. These are new to this whole thing, and I really just love that. And got me excited for the next issue. How are they going to deal with ramifications? What are going to be the ramifications from their friendly neighborhood government agency? Are they going to use this against them? Or is it going to cause backlash? What's going to happen here?
Well, see, this is where Ronnie bought into the whole thing, though. I love the dialogue, and we kind of glossed over that, and I'd really like to talk about it. We represent the whole country. Man, I only got my license last month. Okay, a few days ago, I was just a good-looking jock. I mean, for a lot of people, to have been in that role, in and of itself would have been like a step up. I wasn't when I was a kid. I was the gawky teenager. I wasn't, the football star or anything like that. But now he's got tomorrow, maybe I get the Medal of Honor. I might like this hero thing. So he's looking at this, and this all builds to, you were talking about the tackling before.
Yeah.
He was playing this like a football game. And at the end, my fault. I thought this was a game. And at the end, I thought this was a game. He was playing this like the football star, which I don't think there's anything wrong with him using those skills as a way to operate. He plays football. That's part of his skill set. So using, football analogies and as far as using the powers, I think, Jason himself was using his own scientific skills in using the Firestorm powers. I think the problem is Ronnie's going to have to see that this wasn't his fault, because it wasn't. There was nothing Ronnie could have done to prevent this. He did everything in his power to try and prevent it. The guy overpowered him. Yeah. And it's not his fault. It's really an issue where, do the two of them need to learn how to work together better? Maybe. But Jason was busy doing other things too. So between the two of them, they divided and conquered. They don't have the experience that other heroes do, which is one of the things I'm really finding I'm enjoying in this. It's now I'm getting used to the fact that, okay, we're not seeing the same story again. Which I didn't think we were from the beginning, but we had seen the story with the two of them fighting, so I was kind of curious to see, okay, how is this going to be different? Where is this going to head into a different direction? And this type of stuff is exactly the payoff of where it does. I mean, oh my gosh, the ending of this sequence, I was like, whoa. But to me, it was all the build towards it that really paid it off, because that I thought this was a game at the end where they're sitting there and the two of them, both of them are going to feel guilt from this. Is this the part where Jason has to bring up Ronnie? And, really has to maybe in some ways take back some of the things he said to Ronnie, because that's got to be, everything Jason said to Ronnie has got to be preying on Ronnie's mind right now. Because in many ways, this validates what Jason's been saying. It's not true. Ronnie didn't make the mistake. This was an issue of this. It's this guy's fault, this Firestorm's fault, the one that blew himself up. It's his fault, but he's going to feel that guilt, as he naturally should. That stuff intrigues me. I'm excited for that next issue. I'm like, because that, you can see it in the visual at the last panel with the way Ronnie is down there. This is going to be another opportunity for these two to grow closer, helping each other through that. But it's also going to be a fight. I wouldn't be surprised to see Fury next issue. Because I see a fight between these two possibly over this as well.
Oh, yeah. Well, you think about it. You got survivor's guilt, 1. 2, you got just a failed objective. They're going to have that hanging over their head. And whether they failed or not, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that's what the guy's going to feel. And he's, when you get that anger, you have to, it's that lashing out. It's that displaced rage. And if you got Ronnie feeling this way and Jason coming up trying to console him, that may be the whole, hey, we may get that maybe the one little spark he needs to flash out and just say, hey, what are you doing? Or I could see Ronnie even saying something to Jason like, hey, you should have been helping me with this guy. Why were you messing with those other dudes? You had them taken care of. There's a lot of different ways that this could get played out, and this could get a blame game. One just trying to deflect it off of himself, just try to get the feelings that he has about how he failed, and just that misery that he's feeling. Plus, you got just bodies all over the place. There's a lot of ways this emotion can go. And you think about it, their boss, this government agency, we know are the villains. We know they're bad guys. How are they going to use this situation? She set him up, in my opinion, from the beginning. She knew what this fake Firestorm was. She kept them on the low end, kept them, hey, it's going to be nothing. It's just a PR thing. Take it easy. It'll be easy. It'll be a good thing. And really just kind of got them set up to think, this is a nothing. Don't worry about it. Don't think too much of it. And that was something that will they notice that? Will they play it off? Will they go back with the rage? Or is this going to be another thing they're going to hold over their heads? Look what you two did. You two failed. You two killed all those people. It's because of you, not because of that other Firestorm. There's a lot of different ways they can play this.
The only other thing that I could see happening there, I agree with you on that being a possibility, but the only other thing that I could see happening there would be, this is the way Ronnie's trying to get out of it. He doesn't want to be Firestorm anymore because of the responsibility of it, and her trying to push Jason to bring him back in. It almost seems too soon to have them blaming her for this.
Right.
I agree with you that she might have set everything up, but I don't think they're going to – I think we might discover that as the readers if you're right, and that's the way it's going. But I don't think these two are going to discover that yet. I think the emotion of this is going to be the heavier focus between the two of them versus the discovery of any deception on the end of her.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
So I don't know that – I'm not disagreeing with you. I think that – well, and here's the funny thing. I'm speculating too. Right. So I think there's a lot of different directions this could go in. See, and this is where this book's getting really intriguing for me, because now I've all of a sudden got a book where I was focused on one thing, like these two battling it out again, and I'm like, okay, where are we going with it? Now I'm in a completely different place with it. It went from being a good book to a great book, and I think it's been a great book all along. It's just I needed to see the payoff for me to connect with it on that level. So it's my mental viewpoint of Firestorm with issue 5 is completely changed.
Yes. Oh, well, I tell you, it's funny because I'm looking at that last panel with the death and destruction, and you got the charred human remains, and it's just, again, I'm like, dang, this is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And I hate to be happy with the destruction and death of innocent people, but you know what? This is going to make for some interesting reading, especially next, an aftermath of rage. So I'm thinking we're going to see Fury because of displaced anger between the two of them. And that'll be interesting because we've already seen little glimpses of them. We've seen Fury around. What'll happen now? Is it going to be something where Fury takes over one of them, or will it still Fury be the meshing of the two? Is there going to be something different? That's one of the things that I like about the book is there is some changing going on. When you think about energy and you think about the various laws of physics and the whatnot behind all of that, where energy is in a constant state of change. Well, with Firestorm, they're in a constant state of change because they are creatures of energy. They are power based on that. And I like the fact that, they stick within those kind of laws.
Now, see, this is where, to me, it's I get kind of worried about the state of comics nowadays, because this was a book for me that I needed an arc. I mean, I know this isn't a full arc, but we're talking about 5 issues. Issue 5, this book has clicked for me. And that's not a knock on the delivery. I think the story development is appropriate for this. There was a build to this point. I like a build.
Yeah.
So, I mean, no point in time was I saying this book was a bad book for me. It was a good book. I was enjoying the read as we were going along. It hadn't hit this stride for me yet, but I like a delivery that takes me to this point. I think nowadays, we're geared as comic fans, just from a lot of the stuff I read in forums and stuff like that, I think we're not geared to be patient and give a book a chance for an arc or something to deliver. I think people condemn material. And I'm now editorializing outside of Firestorm on this, but this book kind of jarred this in me. We're kind of viewed to if you're not in 1 or 2 issues getting this, you drop a book or you start trashing it or something like that. And I really get frustrated with that nowadays, because this is a book now that has really turned for me from being where there's other books that they're in my reading that I'm Blackhawks. I'll give an example of that. Blackhawks I've enjoyed all along. Vampire though was one that I needed a little while to get to, and then it became a great book for me. This is the same. That's in that wheelhouse. Aquaman issue 1, I was into Aquaman. Batgirl issue 1, I was into Batgirl. Those are books that I kind of walked in right out of the first issue, out of the starting gate. I was blown away by them. Justice League, blown away first issue. This one is a different kind of delivery. I'm getting to know characters in a brand new status quo. I think that's an important distinction for me on this title. have a strong relationship with Firestorm. I'm walking in at this one saying, am I going to like the new direction for these guys? Have to get used to that new direction. Issue 5, I'm used to it. This is the one where it hit me. Did you have that journey with this book? Like, has it been knocking your socks off out of the starting gate, or was it a build? Where were you at on this title? Because I actually like that. I like that this delivered a little differently. I thought it was creatively done very well, but it was really this issue that made me feel that way because I've kind of seen where it was going. I've like climbed the mountain, so to speak. I don't know. Where were you at on this one?
I was out of the gate. I think I was out of the gate on this one just because I didn't have a really lengthy history with Firestorm. I didn't really know. I knew the characters, but it's more of recent stuff. So I don't have this long baggage, this long history with them that I didn't have to get adjusted to it. We out the gate jumped right in. I was liking where it was going, and I think within the first issue, I was thinking off page on it. So I think I was already there. I will admit, there were some books that I was, more excited about, more bang for me. But this was a book that after that first issue, I'm pretty sure I was into it. This is one where when it comes out, I read the issue. So it's, this is a Thursday, Friday read for me, and has been for all 5 issues.
It is now for me. I liked it all along, and I was thinking off the page with it all along. But it wasn't a Thursday, Friday read for me. I will say that. It is now with issue 5. And I think it really is. Baggage is probably the best word for it. But I don't think that's abnormal.
No.
I had a relationship with these characters. They're in a very new status quo. So I'm at a place where it's a feeling out process for me. And I think that's normal for comic readers. And I guess the reason why I'm bringing that up is I think it's important to note that you sometimes got to give a book a chance if it's characters that you've liked in the past. And it may not hit you the way this did for me. I'm thrilled that with issue 5, this has clicked with me. And now I'm through the roof on it. I'm like, this is now a Thursday, Friday read for me the second I get it. And we get our books on Thursday, just to clarify where that's coming from. There is no Wednesday read.
Yeah, we can't read on Wednesday.
Right. So it really is. For those of you that get them on Wednesday, that means it's a Wednesday read. But right out of the gate.
Well, here for me, actually, because I get mine later on Thursday than you do, just because of the way the delivery schedule's set up. So for me, on Thursday, before I go to bed, I have about time to read maybe 2, sometimes 3 comics on a Thursday. So for me to read a book on Thursday, it's got to be, it's one of 3 books that I'm going to read on Thursday. So when I'm saying something's a Thursday read, that just puts it at that level, and then Friday I come home from work, I grab some comics and I read some comics. So it's,
See, and I grease the hand of my UPS guy, and I don't mean like giving him money. I actually put bacon grease on his hands, which is dangerous for driving a UPS truck. So we have a deal that I will stop doing that as long as my books are here right when I get home from work, and they are. So it's this deal that we worked. That's why you get it so late. But I get home and they're here. I'm amazed by that. It's the day after release. I drive home and my books, about 4:30, I get home. My books are waiting for me, which is, I'm lucky. I mean, it just winds up with the delivery schedule of UPS. For some reason, it works out that way. But this now has become a Thursday read for me because of this issue. I've finally clicked. I'm liking the new status quo for these characters. There's so many questions that I'm asking about these guys. I'm glad I'm into them again, at that level. And I think there's been so much transition with Firestorm that now, we did this joining of the 2 of them for Brightest Day, and then we joined them again here in a new status quo. I was ready for them to get to this point where now we've gotten past that. Now we're building, if that makes sense. Like, I feel like we're past that hump finally, and we're going in this direction of building, and I'm into that. I'm into, seeing reactions to things that they've done as superheroes, and these 2 helping each other out, building a bond. I want to see them build it. Mm-hmm. And it's cool enough that I care about both of them, and I like that I like both of them now. Like, in the earlier issues, I found myself, like, wanting to smack, in many ways, both of them, which I think was normal. I think you're supposed to feel that way. And it was a different journey. I like that you and I had a different journey. It's kind of a fun way to talk about the book because I think that's normal to have that based on your relationship with characters. I'm looking at my Jason Rush Firestorm sketch from Jamal Igle right on the wall. So I mean that tells you that I went to a convention and it was my first sketch ever. So that tells you a lot about my relationship with Firestorm as a character, that I have that. So I think that's what was affecting it. It's a cool book.
You know what I realized?
What?
We each of our first sketches came from Jamal.
Oh, really?
My first sketch I ever received was the Nightwing beating up Hawkman I got from him.
You know what is insane about that? Out of all the things for your because I didn't realize that was your first sketch of all times. Of all the things you could have gotten for your first sketch, that was your choice.
Oh, yeah. Well, I did that obviously for obvious reasons.
Yeah. Mine was in 2006 from Jamal. Yeah, I'd gone to conventions before, but I never thought to get sketches. Brian Deemer on Comic Geek Speak was talking about how if you go to a convention, one of the cool things to do, the backing boards of your comics, if you don't have a sketchbook with you, they're archival grade, so you don't have to worry about them. So I had Jamal Igle on the back of a comic book backing board, not on the back, on the front of it, the white side of it, and I got it framed, do a Jason Rush, and he did the whole thing, inks and the whole work. It's just gorgeous. It's one of my favorite sketches that I have, just because, it's obviously because it was the first one, but also because it's so well done. And I've always thought the Firestorm costume, when he revamped it, I thought he took it back to what I really liked about it as a kid. He made it cool again. He modernized it, kept all the right flair in it with the arms and everything like that, how they're a little puffy. Everything that I like about the Firestorm outfit, what we're seeing here. Mm-hmm. I think this is the Firestorm costumes that are being used here are just great versions of the Firestorm costumes. I love the yellow and red concept, that the two of them have that, and then they combine to make this Fury. That stuff I'm getting really into. So it's a cool book. It was an interesting one. I'm glad that we talked about it. We talked about it before with issue 1, but it was a response to a voicemail, and it wasn't an issue that we really prepared for. So I wanted to revisit this as we wrap up our discussion of the New 52, because I wanted to do it right, or we had a chance to prepare for it ahead of time. So similar to Green Lantern, because we did the same thing with Green Lantern, this is one I wanted to make sure we revisited, because I'm in a very different place with this book now, in a good way. I liked it before. I love it now.
Holy caffeine!
Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast. 300th episode.
Enjoy the show.
Let's talk some comics.
Oh boy. Whatnot?
James?
Lengthy diatribe. Boom. Okay.
All right, we will see everyone next week. That was just plain awesome. That was Mike, and he sent that one in. That's just one example of many different kinds of entries you can do for our Raging Bullets 300th episode 6-year anniversary contest. In March, we are celebrating 6 years of the show and our 300th episode. We've partnered with Discount Party Supplies, that's discountpartysupplies.com, to offer a special celebration package. To enter, 300 shows in 6 years is a big happening for us. We want you to show your creativity and your sense of humor. Choose from any of the themes, 300th episode, 6 years, anniversary. You can draw, record, write. What's your favorite hero or villain would be doing to celebrate or even ruin our anniversary? A parody like this one of any of the show's episodes, themes, or topics. This can include, but is not limited to, making your own spoiler warnings, show intros, show exits, etc. We're going to use this at the end of the show, actually, in upcoming shows, just because it's funny. Create bullets for in-between show segments. I have a bunch of them on there, and I create new ones periodically from time to time, but I'd love to hear your creativity and send those in. Create an article, review of your favorite book or topic you want to shout out that we've covered so far, or wish that we had, or will down the road. Any other creative way that you can celebrate or have fun with our upcoming anniversary. We want this to be purposely open-ended so anyone can enter. You can enter as many times as you wish before the end of February. We're going to randomly pick from the available entries for the prizes, such as, first prize is going to be a trade paperback of the winner's choosing from InStockTrades.com. And a Green Lantern party package from DiscountPartySupplies.com. This package is right on the website of ragingbullets.com, so be sure to check that. It's a whole bunch of cool Green Lantern-themed party supplies, anything from balloons to streamers to rings to plates, napkins, everything you could want, tablecloths, cutlery, all that cool stuff from discountpartysupplies.com. Second and third prize, you're going to get a choice of our listener and show-donated comic and trade paperback prize bag collection. Entries, again, are due the last day of February in any time zone. It should be emailed to ragingbullets@gmail.com with the heading 300th Contest. Recorded entries may be sent in via our show voicemail line at 1-440-388-4434 or Dr. Norge on Skype, or you can also email those to me as well. So I would love for as many people to be able to participate in that contest as possible. Remember, the more times you enter, the more entries you have in there for when we randomly pick a winner. So I'm really excited for this. That was hysterical. What a great entry.
That was funny. That was good.
James, our sponsors for this episode are DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Once again, at DCBService.com, 40 to 50% off all DC trade paperbacks and hardcovers this month. Those are all the new ones. So it's a great chance to pre-order those at an amazing discount from DCBService.com. Over at InStockTrades.com, I shouted out, this is a personal favorite for mine. It's not DC. It's the Madman 20th Anniversary Monster hardcover. Anyone reading iZombie, or if you've seen any of Michael Allred's artwork before, he's an incredible talent. I've got a huge soft spot in my heart for Madman. This book's available. It's a $100 book, 264 pages, tons of creative geniuses that he's worked with on that book over the years. It's only $48. So it's a great opportunity to get that at a discount. But that's only one example of many amazing discounts available from InStockTrades.com, so be sure to check them out. Our next episode, Jim, DC Universe, in one line only. I'm beating my head against the wall on this one, but I think one of the cool things about this is, and I'm glad we waited till the end of covering all of the new 52 books, it's kind of morphed into a great opportunity for you and I to chat about each of the group areas, from Batman to Superman to the DC Heroes line to the Supernatural line, and just to talk about each of these different lines. How successful were these launches or relaunches or whatever you want to call them? And what do we feel worked? What would we like to see in the future from it? Like, where do we want it to go from here now that they've done this? What do we feel didn't work, if there's anything? And kind of talk about that and kind of a summary of this whole experience. So it's our wrap of covering the entire new 52. And that will be our next week's episode. So we will see you then.
Bye.
Flying through space and time, 1,000 different lifetimes. Faded for love and loss and incredibly clear sightlines. Swinging your mace around, such a practical outlook. Helping the JSA and occasionally supporting your own book. Hawkman, Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see. Hawkman, your plan and what you do to me. Villains are closing in, be they Thanin Guard or Egyptian. Working so hard to thwart you and Hawkgirl's mission. The odds are not on your side, and danger seems to stack up. Things would be so much easier if you would just call for backup. Hawkman, Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see your plan. What you do to me, Hawkman, Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see, Hawkman, your plan, what you do to me, Hawkman, talking about Hawkman.